Chapter 1. The afternoon sun slanted through the high arched windows of Hallowell Hall, catching the dust motes dancing in the air above 300 heads. It was a Tuesday in October at Pembroke University, which meant the air outside was crisp enough to warrant sweaters, and the leaves on the quad were turning the color of old pennies. Inside the lecture hall, the air was warm and smelled of floor wax and damp wool. Professor Aris Mercer paced the small stage in front of a blackboard that was already covered in white chalk dust. He was 55, with a beard that was more salt than pepper, and a corduroy jacket that had seen better decades. He didn't use a microphone. He didn't need one. He had the kind of voice that carried to the back row without straining, a baritone honed by 20 years of trying to make 19-year-olds care about the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. "History isn't a straight line," Mercer said, stopping to lean against the podium. "It's a circle. A very violent, very repetitive circle. We look at the map of the Middle East today, and we see borders drawn by French and British bureaucrats in 1916. We see the Sykes-Picot Agreement. But the people living there? They see 5,000 years of grievances." He scanned the room. A sea of laptops. Faces illuminated by the blue glow of screens. Some were taking notes. Some were shopping for boots. "The conflict in Syria isn't new," Mercer continued. He tapped a map projected onto the screen behind him. "It didn't start in 2011. It didn't start with the Arab Spring. It started when we decided that geography mattered more than ethnicity, more than religion. And when you force people into a box they don't fit in, eventually they burn the box down." A hand went up in the third row. A girl with glasses and a Save the Whales sticker on her laptop. "But Professor," she asked, "isn't that a fatalistic view? Doesn't that absolve the current regimes of responsibility?" Mercer smiled. It was a genuine smile. He liked the pushback. "It doesn't absolve them, Ms. Warren. It contextualizes them. A dictator is a symptom, not just a disease. If you remove the man but leave the conditions that created him, you just get a new man with a different mustache." He turned back to the board to write a name. Assad. The double doors at the back of the lecture hall opened. It wasn't a slam. It was just the heavy pneumatic hiss of the hydraulic closers engaging. A few students in the back turned. Most didn't. People came in late all the time. A young man walked into the aisle. He looked like a student. Jeans. Gray hoodie. Backpack slung over one shoulder. He was dark-haired, clean-shaven, blending perfectly into the demographic of an Ivy League campus. He didn't look crazy. He didn't look angry. He looked like he was looking for a seat. He walked down the center aisle. He didn't look at the students on either side. He looked at the stage. Mercer turned from the board, chalk in hand. He squinted against the stage lights. "You're late," Mercer said, not unkindly. "Find a seat." Quietly. The young man didn't find a seat. He kept walking. He reached the front row. Then he stopped. He reached into the front pocket of his hoodie. He didn't pull out a phone. He didn't pull out a notebook. He pulled out a pistol. A Glock 17 with an extended magazine. Black, matte, ugly against the academic setting. The girl with the glasses saw it first. She didn't scream. She just froze, her mouth opening in a silent O. The young man raised the weapon. His stance was practiced. Two hands. "Isosceles." "Allahu Akbar," he shouted. It wasn't a scream of rage. It was a declaration. Loud. Clear. Enunciated, for the back of the room. He fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. A crack like a whip snapping, amplified by the acoustics designed to carry a professor's voice. The first round hit Mercer in the chest. Dust puffed from the corduroy jacket. Mercer looked down, surprised, like he'd spilled coffee. The second round hit him in the neck. Mercer spun. He hit the blackboard, smearing the chalk with a spray of bright red arterial blood. He slid down the wall, leaving a streak that looked like a macabre underline to the word Assad. Then the screaming started. 300 students realized at once that this wasn't a drill, wasn't a prank, wasn't theater. They scrambled. Laptops clattered to the floor. Bodies shoved against bodies. People dove under desks. People ran for the side exits. The shooter didn't panic. He didn't spray bullets wildly into the crowd. He turned to his left. He shot the girl with the glasses. One round. Head. She slumped over her laptop. He turned to his right. A boy in a varsity jacket was trying to climb over the seats. The shooter fired. The boy fell back, clutching his chest. 3 dead. 5 seconds. The shooter walked toward the side exit. He fired as he moved. Methodical. Rhythmic. Pop. 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 He wasn't aiming at specific people now. He was aiming at the mass. He was creating volume. Creating chaos. Bullets tore through wood and plaster and flesh. A girl in the 4th row took a round in the shoulder and went down screaming. A boy near the door was hit in the leg. The noise was a physical thing. The gunfire. The screams. The sound of chairs overturning. The shooter reached the side door. He stopped. He turned back to the room. He looked at Mercer's body on the stage. He looked at the students cowering under the desks. He fired one last shot into the ceiling. Then he pushed the crash bar and walked out. He didn't run. He walked. Into the hallway. The hall was empty. Classes were in session. He holstered the gun in his waistband, under the hoodie. He walked fast toward the rear exit of the building. He passed a janitor mopping the floor. The janitor had headphones on. He didn't hear the screams inside the lecture hall. He nodded at the young man. The young man nodded back. He pushed through the rear doors and out into the October sunshine. The campus was idyllic. Students throwing a frisbee on the lawn. A couple holding hands on a bench. The disconnect was jarring. Inside, the world had ended. Outside, it was just Tuesday. The young man walked to the bike rack. He unlocked a nondescript mountain bike. He put his backpack in the basket. He swung a leg over. Sirens started to wail in the distance. Campus police. Then the deeper warble of the town units. The young man pedaled away. He didn't speed. He rode toward the edge of campus, toward the woods that bordered the river. He merged with the bike path. He became just another student getting some exercise. Back in Hallowell Hall, the silence had returned, broken only by the whimpering of the wounded and the mechanical hum of the projector fan. 14 students were bleeding on the floor. 2 were dead in their seats. And Professor R.S. Mercer, the man who believed history was a circle, lay dead on the stage, his blood pooling on the linoleum. By the time the first police officer kicked open the doors of the lecture hall, weapon drawn, sweating and terrified, the shooter was a mile away. He stopped by the river. He stripped off the hoodie and the jeans. Underneath he wore running shorts and a tech shirt. He put the clothes, the gun, and the backpack into a weighted mesh bag. He tossed it into the deepest part of the current. He put on running shoes he'd taken from the backpack before sinking it. He adjusted his watch. Then he jogged toward the town center, checking his pulse. It was barely elevated. Within an hour, the news vans arrived. They parked on the lawn, their satellite dishes extending like antennae of giant insects feeding on the tragedy. The chyrons started flashing across screens in airports and bars and living rooms all over America. Terror at Pembroke. Ivy League shooting. Islamist slogan shouted. The pundits were already live. Terrorism experts were being patched in via Zoom. They talked about radicalization. They talked about soft targets. They talked about the vulnerability of the education system. This bears all the hallmarks of a lone wolf attack, a former FBI assistant director told CNN. Radicalized online. Access to firearms. A symbolic target. Professor Mercer was a vocal critic of certain regimes in the Middle East. It fits the pattern. The president made a statement from the Rose Garden. He promised justice. He promised resources. He told the country to be vigilant. Homeland Security raised the threat level. Airports went on high alert. Police departments in every major city put extra patrols around universities. Fear rolled across the country like a fog. But in the chaos, in the noise, in the rush to define the enemy, no one asked the right question. They asked how he got the gun. They asked why he hated America. They asked where he was radicalized. No one asked why a terrorist would walk past 300 easy targets to execute a history professor who taught about the Ottoman Empire. No one asked why the shooter was so precise. And no one noticed that while the camera crews were filming the sobbing students and the candlelit vigils, the investigation was already being steered. The narrative was set. The box was built. Professor Mercer was a victim of the war on terror, a casualty of ideology. The file on Aris Mercer was pulled by the FBI. It was flagged, classified, moved to the Counterterrorism Division. The connections to his past, to his time in Syria, to the NGO work, to the other academics he had known, were buried under the weight of the Islamist label. It was a perfect cover. A murder hidden inside a massacre. As the sun went down over Pembroke, the candles flickered on the quad. The students held each other and sang songs about peace. And miles away, in a motel room in Pennsylvania, a young man watched the coverage on a cheap TV. He wasn't praying. He wasn't reading a manifesto. He was checking his bank account on an encrypted phone. The transfer had cleared. He turned off the TV. The job was done. The panic was real. The distraction was absolute. He went to sleep, the sound of the world screaming barely a whisper in his mind. Chapter 2. The suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, were quiet at 4 in the afternoon. It was the kind of quiet that cost $300,000 and came with a homeowners association that measured the height of your grass with a ruler. Arthur Clark lived in a beige 2-story colonial on a cul-de-sac named Whispering Pines. He drove a Volvo station wagon. He wore cardigans. He taught AP Calculus at Oak Creek High School and coached the chess club on Thursdays. He was currently standing in his kitchen, waiting for the electric kettle to boil. The television in the living room was on. CNN. The volume was low, but the words drifted in. Shooting. Pembroke. Casualties. Terror. Arthur didn't watch it. He knew what it looked like. He knew the chaotic camera angles, the running students, the breathless reporters speculating on things they didn't understand. He poured the water over a tea bag, Earl Grey, and watched the brown plumes swirl in the cup. He was 52 years old. His hairline was receding, and he had a slight paunch that no amount of walking the dog seemed to fix. He looked soft, harmless. The front door opened. Art. You home? It was Sarah, his wife of 15 years. She worked in human resources for an insurance company downtown. She came in carrying grocery bags, shaking rain from her umbrella. "Kitchen," Arthur called out. His voice was mild. "Midwestern." Sarah bustled in. She kissed him on the cheek. She smelled of rain and vanilla car air freshener. "Did you see the news?" she asked, setting the bags on the counter. "Ideally awful. At a college. Kids just trying to learn." "I heard," Arthur said. "Tragic." "It's the world we live in," Sarah said, pulling a carton of milk from the bag. "Nobody is safe anywhere. Not even at school." Arthur took the milk from her. "I'll put it away. You sit. You look tired." "Quarterly reviews," she sighed. "Everyone wants a raise, and nobody wants to work for it." She went to the living room and sank onto the sofa. Arthur put the milk in the fridge. He arranged the other groceries. Orderly. Labels facing out. He liked order. Mathematics was about order. Life was about entropy. His job was to keep the entropy at bay. The phone rang. Not his cell phone. Not Sarah's. The landline. The dusty cordless unit, sitting on the counter next to the spice rack. The one they kept because it was bundled with the cable package. The one that only rang for telemarketers and wrong numbers. Arthur froze. His hand hovered over a box of pasta. One ring. "I'll get it," Sarah called out. Probably another robocall about the car warranty. "No," Arthur said. His voice was different. Just slightly. The mildness was gone, replaced by a sudden sharp clarity. "I've got it," he said. He picked up the handset. He didn't say hello. He held it to his ear and waited. Silence on the line. Then a voice. Mechanical. Distorted. "The birch trees are shedding early this year." Arthur didn't breathe. He looked out the window, at his manicured lawn. At the Volvo in the driveway. At the life he had built brick by brick for 2 decades. "The winter will be hard," Arthur replied. Ideally in Russian, but he spoke English. The protocol required English on open lines. "The frost is already here," the voice said. "Deep roots are required." Click. The line went dead. Arthur stood there. The dial tone buzzed in his ear. 20 years. He had been 32 when he arrived. A different name. A different face, before the plastic surgery in a clinic in Brazil. He had been Spetsnaz. Grew. One of the best. Then he became Arthur Clarke. He learned to discuss lawn care. He learned to grade calculus tests. He learned to love a woman who didn't know his real name. He pressed the off button on the phone. Set it back in the cradle. "Who was it?" Sarah asked from the living room. "Wrong number," Arthur said. He picked up his tea. His hand was steady. Rock steady. "I'm going downstairs," he said. "I need to check the furnace filter. It's been making a noise." "Okay, honey. Don't take too long. Dinner in an hour." "I won't be long." He opened the basement door. The hinges didn't squeak. He oiled them every month. He walked down the wooden steps. The basement was finished. Carpeted. A sectional sofa. A big TV where he watched football on Sundays. A workbench in the corner where he built model airplanes. He walked to the workbench. He looked at the half-finished P-51 Mustang. The glue. The paint. The tiny decals. A hobby for a patient man. He pushed the workbench aside. It was heavy, mounted on hidden casters that only engaged when you pressed a specific knot in the wood. Behind the bench was a section of dry wall. It looked like the rest of the wall. Beige paint. Textured. Arthur pressed his thumb against a screw head that looked like it held a stud. There was a click. A section of the wall popped out an inch. He pulled it open. The air inside the hidden cavity was cool and smelled of gun oil. He reached in. He pulled out a hard plastic case. Pelican. Waterproof. Dustproof. He set it on the floor. He knelt. He opened the latches. Inside, nestled in custom-cut foam, was a pistol. Not a Glock. A Makarov PM, modified. Threaded barrel. Suppressor attached. No serial numbers. Next to it, 3 spare magazines. A box of subsonic ammunition. A passport with a Canadian maple leaf on the cover. A stack of cash. $50,000 in used 20s. And a dossier. A manila envelope sealed with red wax. Arthur picked up the gun. He checked the action. It slid back with a smooth, silent snick. He ejected the magazine. Loaded. It felt heavy in his hand. Heavier than the chalk he held every day. But it felt right. It felt like an extension of an arm he hadn't used in a lifetime. He put the gun down and picked up the dossier. He broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A photograph. A name. An address. Dr. Ivan Petrov. University of Chicago. Physics Department. And a timeline. 48 hours. Arthur stared at the photo. Petrov. He knew the name. A defector. A traitor. A man who had sold his country for a tenure-track position and a condo on the lake. Arthur looked at the address. Chicago. 5 hours by car. He looked around the basement. At the football trophies on the shelf. The picture of him and Sarah at Disney World. He stood up. He took off his cardigan, folded it neatly, and placed it on the sofa. He took off his glasses. He didn't need them. The prescription was plain glass. He put them on top of the cardigan. He stripped off his button-down shirt. Underneath, his body was older, softer, but the muscle memory was there. The scars were there. He opened a duffel bag from the bottom of the hidden compartment. Inside were clothes he hadn't touched in years. Dark jeans. A black windbreaker. Boots that didn't have arch support, but had steel shanks. He dressed quickly. He packed the gun, the ammo, the cash and the passport into the duffel. He put the dossier in the front pocket. He closed the wall panel. Pushed the workbench back into place. He looked at the model airplane one last time. He crushed the delicate balsa wood wing with his thumb. He walked up the stairs. The kitchen was empty. Sarah was in the living room, watching the news coverage of the shooting. "They're saying it's terrorism," she called out. "Some group in the Middle East." "It's always something," Arthur said. He walked into the living room. He stood behind the sofa. "Sarah." She turned. She saw the clothes. The bag. She frowned. "Art, what are you wearing? Where are you going?" "I have to go out," he said. "For a while." "Out? Where?" "Dinner is." "I have to go, Sarah." She looked at his face. Really looked at it. And she stopped talking. Because Arthur Clark wasn't there anymore. The man she argued with about the thermostat, the man who snored, the man who worried about his cholesterol, he was gone. Standing there was a stranger. A man with eyes like flat gray stones. A man who held himself with a terrifying stillness. "Art," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "Don't wait up," he said. He walked to the front door. He opened it. The cool air rushed in. He stepped out onto the porch. He didn't look back at the house. He didn't look at the Volvo. He walked down the driveway, past the manicured lawn, past the mailbox with the Clarks painted on the side. He walked down the street to the corner. A car was parked there. A dark sedan. Engine running. It wasn't his car. He didn't know who was driving. It didn't matter. It was logistics. He opened the door and got in. "Chicago," he said. The driver nodded, pulled away from the curb. Arthur Clark was dead. Nikolai was back. And he had work to do. Chapter 3. The University of Chicago sat on the edge of the lake like a Gothic cathedral dedicated to secular knowledge. Stone buildings, gargoyles, and ivy that clung to the walls even as the wind off the water tried to strip it away. It was 8 p.m. The campus was quiet, the quadrangles mostly empty, as students retreated to libraries and dorms. Dr. Ivan Petrov's office was on the 4th floor of the Eckhart Hall. It was a corner office, a privilege earned by 20 years of publishing papers on quantum chromodynamics that fewer than 100 people in the world understood. Petrov was 62. He had a shock of white hair that defied gravity, and a habit of muttering to himself in Russian when the math wasn't behaving. He was currently staring at a chalkboard covered in equations, tapping a piece of chalk against his teeth. "No," he muttered. "Yet. Ito ne tak." He erased a line of symbols with his sleeve. Chalk dust settled on his tweed jacket. He didn't hear the door open. The lock on his office door was standard university issue. A simple keyway that could be picked in 10 seconds. Or, if you had the master key that had been copied from a janitor's ring 2 hours ago, it opened silently. Nikolai stepped inside. He closed the door gently. The latch clicked. Petrov turned. He saw a man in dark clothes. A man with a face he didn't recognize, but eyes he knew instantly. They were the eyes of the old country. The eyes of the Lubyanka. Petrov didn't scream. He didn't run. He just dropped the chalk. It hit the floor and broke into 3 pieces. "Who sent you?" Petrov asked. His English was heavily accented, thickened by fear. "Does it matter?" Nikolai asked. He held the Makarov loosely at his side. The suppressor made the barrel look long and ungainly. "I am a citizen," Petrov said. He backed up until he hit his desk. "I have rights. I have protection." "You have nothing," Nikolai said. "You spent your protection 20 years ago. That was a different time. A different world." "The world doesn't change, Ivan. Only the maps." Nikolai raised the gun. Petrov's hands came up, palms out. "Wait. Please. I have money. I have research. I can give you? I don't want your money. And I don't care about your physics." "Then why? Why now?" "Because you remember," Nikolai said. "And memories are dangerous things." Petrov's face went pale. He understood. It wasn't about the quantum fields. It wasn't about the defection. It was about the sand, the heat, the village in the desert. "Zoric," Petrov whispered. "Goodbye, Ivan." Nikolai fired. 2 shots. Phut. Phut. The first round hit Petrov in the chest, punching through the tweed and the shirt and the heart that was beating too fast. The second round followed the first, a double tap of professional efficiency. Petrov slumped back onto his desk. He slid down, knocking over a stack of papers and a Newton's cradle that began to click rhythmically. Clack, clack, clack. He hit the floor. Nikolai walked over. He stood over the body. He aimed carefully. One shot to the head. The insurance policy. The Newton's cradle slowed. Stopped. Silence returned to the office. Nikolai didn't rush. He holstered the gun. He put on a pair of latex gloves. He began to stage the scene. He pulled Petrov's wallet from his pocket, took the cash, tossed the wallet on the floor. He took the watch from Petrov's wrist, an old Omega. He put it in his pocket. He opened the desk drawers, pulled out files, scattered them, knocked over a lamp. It looked like a robbery, a frantic search for valuables by a desperate junkie or a student looking for exam answers. But Nikolai wasn't done. He walked to the computer on the desk. He didn't steal it. He pulled a small tool from his pocket, a cordless drill with a diamond-tipped bit. He located the hard drive tower under the desk. He drilled 3 holes through the casing, directly into the platters. Then he went to the bookshelf. He found the external drives, drilled them too. This wasn't robbery. This was data destruction. But he left one thing. He walked to the chalkboard, to the equation Petrov had been struggling with. He picked up a piece of chalk. Next to the erased line, in the bottom corner of the board, he drew a small symbol. A circle with a line through it. It looked like a 0, or a null set, or a target. It was a message, not for the police, not for the FBI, but for the others, the ones who would see the news and know that the past had finally caught up. Nikolai dropped the chalk. He peeled off the gloves and put them in his pocket. He walked to the door, listened. The hallway was quiet. He slipped out. He took the stairs down. He avoided the elevators. He exited the building through a side door that led to a loading dock. The night air was cold. The wind off the lake cut through his jacket. He walked to the car parked 2 blocks away. Not the dark sedan from Columbus. A different car. A rental. He got in. He started the engine. He drove south toward the highway. 1 down. 2 to go. The phone in his pocket buzzed. He didn't answer it. He knew who it was. He knew the next name on the list. He merged onto Lake Shore Drive. The city lights blurred past him. Dr. Ivan Petrov was dead. A robbery gone wrong. A tragedy in academia. The news would report it that way. The police would investigate it that way. But somewhere, a man named Brill Wingfield would see the drilled hard drives. He would see the symbol on the board. And he would know better. Nikolai smiled in the darkness. Let him come. The game was more fun with 2 players. Chapter 4. The phone in Brill's apartment rang at 0400. He wasn't asleep. He was in the kitchen, disassembling the extractor fan on the stove. It had developed a rattle that sounded like a loose bearing, and Brill didn't like noises he couldn't explain. He wiped the grease from his hands with a rag and picked up the phone. It was the secure line, the one that was routed through 3 servers in Singapore before it ever hit the cell tower in D.C. Yes, Brill said. It's Carver, the voice said. Turn on the news. I don't watch the news. It's bad for digestion. Turn it on, Brill. Channel 4. Brill walked into the living room. He picked up the remote and clicked the TV on. The screen was filled with the face of a young man. Brown hair, unremarkable features, a slight smile that looked like a yearbook photo. The chyron beneath him read, Terror at Pembroke, 3 dead, 14 injured. Suspect at large. I heard about it, Brill said. Islamist shooter. Campus tragedy. FBI is running point. That's the headline, Carver said. Now change the channel. Local news. Chicago. Brill switched the input. He found a streaming feed from a Chicago affiliate. The anchor was standing in front of a university building, cordoned off by yellow tape. Professor found murdered in campus robbery. Dr. Ivan Petrov, Carver said. Physics Department. University of Chicago. Found dead 3 hours ago. Police say it was a break-in gone wrong. Chicago has a lot of break-ins, Brill said. And physicists have nice watches. Petrov wasn't just a physicist, Carver said. Before he came here, he was the chief scientific advisor for the Russian 4th Chemical Defense Brigade. He defected in 2014. Brought a laptop full of data on nerve agent precursors. Brill looked at the TV screen. At the stone building. At the flashing blue lights. And the first victim? Brill asked. The one at Pembroke? Aris Mercer. History professor. Speciality in the Ottoman Empire. But before that, he worked for an NGO in Damascus, documenting human rights abuses. 2 professors, Brill said. 2 universities. 2 different cities. Within 12 hours. The agencies aren't seeing it, Carver said. They're blinded by the flashbang at Pembroke. They have a shooter shouting Allahu Akbar and a manifesto circulating on 4chan. They're chasing a jihadist cell. They're looking for a holy war. And you think it's a cleanup. I think Petrov's death is too quiet, Carver said. And Mercer's death is too loud. The noise covers the silence. Who handled Petrov's defection? I did, Carver said. 10 years ago. He was terrified, Brill. Not of the FSB. Of a general named Zoric. He said he saw things in the desert that would make God close his eyes. And now he's dead. And now he's dead. And the Chicago PD is looking for a junkie who pawned a Rolex. What do you want me to do? I want you to go to Chicago, Carver said. Before the FBI takes jurisdiction. Before the crime scene gets scrubbed by local cops who think they're solving a mugging. Look at the body. Look at the office. Tell me if it was a robbery. And if it wasn't. Then we have a problem, Carver said. Because if someone is hunting the people who were in Syria in 2014, the list isn't just 2 names long. I'm expensive, Carver. The account is funded. Half now. Half when you tell me who pulled the trigger. Chicago is cold this time of year. It's about to get colder. Brill hung up. He looked at the TV. The Chicago reporter was interviewing a student who was crying. He was such a nice man, she sobbed. He gave me an extension on my midterm. Brill turned off the TV. He walked to the bedroom. He packed a bag. Not the tactical gear. A suit. A heavy coat. Gloves. He needed to look like a consultant, or a federal investigator who didn't want to show his badge. He took the SIG P226 from the safe. He checked the action. He put it in his checked luggage, locked in a TSA-approved hard case that would sail through screening because his credentials, fake but flagged in the system as do not detain, were impeccable. He took a cab to Reagan National. He caught the first flight to O'Hare. He landed at 8 a.m. The sky over Chicago was the color of a dirty nickel. The wind, coming off the tarmac, cut through his coat like a knife. He rented a car. A gray Chevy Malibu. Invisible. He drove to Hyde Park. The crime scene tape was still up around Eckhart Hall, but the police presence had thinned. A single patrol car sat at the curb. The heavy lifting, the forensics, the coroner, was done. Now it was just paperwork. Brill parked a block away. He walked to the building. He didn't go to the front door. He walked around the perimeter. He found a side entrance near the loading dock. It was locked. He pulled a small pick set from his pocket. 10 seconds later, he was inside. He took the stairs to the 4th floor. The hallway was empty. Yellow tape crisscrossed the door to room 412. A uniformed officer sat in a chair at the end of the hall, reading a sports magazine. He looked bored. He looked like he was waiting for his shift to end. Brill walked toward him. He didn't sneak. He walked with purpose. He pulled a leather wallet from his pocket and flipped it open. The badge inside was gold and heavy. It said, Department of Justice. It didn't say what division. Officer, Brill said. The cop looked up. He scrambled to his feet, dropping the magazine. Sir. Special Agent Miller, Brill lied. DOJ. I'm here to follow up on the Petrov case. Possible federal nexus with the Pembroke shooting. The cop's eyes widened. Pembroke? You think they're connected? We're ruling it out, Brill said. I need 5 minutes in the room. Detectives said no entry. Sealed scene. Detectives answer to the mayor, Brill said. I answer to the Attorney General. Do you want to call your sergeant and explain why you delayed a federal terrorism investigation? The cop hesitated. He looked at the badge. He looked at Brill's face. He saw the boredom, the arrogance, the absolute certainty of a bureaucrat who could ruin a career with a phone call. 5 minutes, the cop said. But don't touch anything. I never do. The cop lifted the tape. Brill unlocked the door with the key he'd picked from the lock. The mechanism was simple, not the biometric scanner he'd expected for a man like Petrov. He stepped inside. The office was a wreck. Papers scattered. Books pulled from shelves. A lamp overturned. It looked exactly like a robbery. Too exactly. Brill closed the door. He put on a pair of latex gloves. He stood in the center of the room and just looked. He looked at the desk. The drawers were pulled out, dumped on the floor. A classic toss. But there was something wrong. He walked to the bookshelf. The books were on the floor. But the dust on the shelves, it wasn't disturbed in a random pattern. It was disturbed in specific spots, where external hard drives would sit. He looked at the computer tower under the desk. He crouched down. He saw the holes. 3 of them. Small. Neat. Drilled through the side casing. He pulled a penlight from his pocket and shone it into the holes. He saw the glint of shattered platters. A junkie didn't bring a cordless drill to a robbery. A junkie stole the computer and pawned it for $50. This was data destruction. Targeted. Professional. Brill stood up. He looked around the room again. He looked at the chalkboard. It was covered in equations. Physics. Math that looked like hieroglyphics. But in the bottom corner, near the eraser tray, there was something else. A small symbol drawn in white chalk. A circle with a line through it. A null set. Or a target. It was drawn with a different pressure than the equations. The chalk was thicker. Newer. Brill took a picture of it with his phone. He walked to the window. He looked out at the campus. Carver was right. This wasn't a robbery. This was a hit. And the killer hadn't just eliminated the target. He had left a signature. Brill checked the floor near the desk. He saw a faint scuff mark on the linoleum. A heel drag. Petrov had backed away. He had been facing his killer. He looked at the blood spatter on the wall behind the desk. High velocity missed. Gunshot. He walked back to the door. He had seen enough. He opened the door. The cop was standing there, looking nervous. "All good, Agent." "All good," Brill said. "Looks like a robbery to me." The cop let out a breath. "That's what the detective said. Just bad luck." "Yeah," Brill said. "Bad luck." He walked down the hall. He took the stairs. He exited the building into the cold wind. He walked to his car. He got in. He didn't start the engine immediately. He pulled up the photo of the symbol on his phone. He texted it to Simon. "Chicago crime scene. Not a robbery. Killer left a calling card. Run it." He waited. 3 minutes later, Simon replied. "Running it against databases might take a while. It's generic." But Brill Petrov wasn't just working on physics. "I found a hidden partition in his university email. He was communicating with someone." "Who?" "R.S. Mercer, the professor at Pembroke." Brill stared at the screen. The connection was there. 2 dead men. Communicating in secret. What were they talking about? Brill typed. "Not sure yet." It was coded. But the last email from Mercer, sent 2 days ago, had a subject line. What was it? The Squad. Brill put the phone away. The Squad. It sounded like a military unit. Or a group of friends. Or a list of targets. He started the car. He needed to talk to Simon properly. He needed a secure line. And he needed to find out who the other members of the Squad were. Because whoever they were next. Chapter 5. The police tape was yellow plastic, snapping in the cold Chicago wind like a cheap flag. Brill stood on the sidewalk across from Eckhart Hall, watching the scene he had walked away from 3 hours ago. The uniformed officer he had bluffed was gone, replaced by 2 detectives in overcoats who looked like they were arguing about lunch. He had already seen the inside. He had seen the drilled hard drives. He had seen the chalk symbol. Now he needed to see what he had missed. He crossed the street. He didn't approach the main entrance. He walked around to the side alley, near the loading dock where he had picked the lock. A dumpster was overflowing with cardboard and trash bags. Brill stopped. He looked at the dumpster. If the killer had staged a robbery, he had taken valuables. A wallet. A watch. Cash. A junkie would have pawned them immediately. A professional would have dumped them. Why carry evidence of a robbery you didn't commit? Brill put on a pair of leather gloves. He climbed into the dumpster. It smelled of wet cardboard and rotting cafeteria food. He dug through the top layer. Nothing. He went deeper. He found a plastic grocery bag, tied in a knot. It felt heavy. He ripped it open. Inside was a wallet. Brown leather. Expensive. ID inside, Ivan Petrov. Next to it was a watch. An Omega Seamaster. The crystal was cracked. And a wad of cash. $200. Sloppy, Brill whispered. Or deliberate. If the killer wanted to sell the robbery narrative, he wouldn't have dumped the cash. He would have kept it. Dumping the cash meant he didn't care about money. Dumping it here, at the scene, meant he wanted it found. Eventually. Or he was arrogant. Brill pocketed the items. He climbed out of the dumpster. He walked back to his rental car. He sat in the driver's seat and laid the items on the passenger seat. He opened the wallet. Credit cards. Faculty ID. A picture of a woman, faded black and white. Petrov's wife. She looked Russian. Serious. He checked the hidden pockets. Nothing. He picked up the watch. It had stopped at 8:14. Time of death. Or time of impact when Petrov hit the floor. He turned it over. On the back casing, an engraving. Cyrillic script. To Ivan. For the truth. 2014. The year Petrov defected. Who gave him the watch? Carver. A handler. Or someone else? Brill pulled out his phone. He took a picture of the engraving. He sent it to Simon. Run the engraving. Find out who bought this watch. He started the car. He needed to go back to the hotel. He needed a secure line. But his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Brill stared at it. His personal cell. Not the burner. Not the secure line. The one listed under a shell company in Delaware. He answered. Who is this? You're looking for ghosts, Mr. Wingfield. The voice was mechanical. Digitally altered. I'm looking for a murderer, Brill said. Semantics. Ivan was a ghost. He died a long time ago. We just confirmed the paperwork. Who is we? We are the ones cleaning up the mess you Americans made in the desert. Is that why you drilled the hard drives? Brill asked. To clean up the mess. The drives were irrelevant. Ivan's memory was the storage device. And we formatted it. You missed a spot, Brill said. Did I? The chalkboard. You left a signature. Silence on the line. Then a low, distorted chuckle. You are observant. Good. It makes the game more interesting. What game? The game of consequences. Aris Mercer forgot the rules. Ivan Petrov forgot the rules. And now. Now the circle is closing. Who's next? Brill asked. You'll find out. Soon enough. I'm coming for you, Brill said. No, Mr. Wingfield. You are chasing shadows. And shadows get longer as the sun goes down. Click. Brill looked at the phone. He traced the call immediately using an app Simon had installed. Location, VoIP server. Zurich. Untraceable. He swore. The killer knew who he was. He had Brill's number. That meant he had access to databases he shouldn't have. Or he had been watching Petrov's office. Brill looked at the rearview mirror. The street was empty. He wasn't just investigating a murder anymore. He was a participant. He put the car in gear. He drove to a Starbucks 3 miles away. He bought a black coffee and used the Wi-Fi routed through a VPN to check his email. Simon had replied. Watch purchased in London. 2014. Buyer, Elias Curry. Curry. The third name. Brill typed a reply. Who is Elias Curry? Simon's response was almost instant. Professor of Comparative Literature. Middlebury College. Vermont. Syrian refugee. Defected, 2014. Vermont. Brill looked at the map on his phone. Mercer, in New Hampshire. Petrov in Chicago. Curry, in Vermont. The killer said the circle was closing. Curry is the third point, Brill whispered. He checked flights. No direct flights to Burlington from Chicago that left in the next hour. He checked driving time. 14 hours. Too long. He called Carver. I have a name, Brill said. Who? Elias Curry. Middlebury College. He bought Petrov a watch in 2014. He's connected. Is he alive? For now. But the killer called me, Carver. He knows I'm looking. And he said the circle is closing. I'll send a team to Vermont, Carver said. Secure Curry. No, Brill said. If you send a team, the killer will see them coming. He's professional. He'll spook. Or he'll accelerate the timeline. So what do you want to do? I'm going there. Alone. Get me a charter out of Midway. Now. Done. Tail number N442 Bravo. Hangar 4. 30 minutes. And Carver? Yeah. The killer knew my number. My real number. Silence on the line. That's impossible, Carver said. Nothing is impossible, Brill said. Check your leaks. We have a hole. He hung up. He drove to Midway. He left the rental car in the short-term lot with the keys in the ignition. He walked onto the tarmac. The Learjet was waiting, engines whining. He climbed aboard. As the plane lifted off over the gray grid of Chicago, Brill looked at the photo of the watch again. For the truth. What truth? What had 3 academics seen in Syria that was worth killing for 10 years later? Brill closed his eyes. He tried to sleep. But all he could see was the symbol on the chalkboard. A target. And he was flying straight into the center of it. Chapter 6. The hotel room in downtown Chicago was a beige cube of corporate indifference. It had a view of an alley and a minibar that cost $6 for a bottle of water. Brill sat at the desk. The room darkened except for the glow of his laptop screen. He had connected to the secure server using a dongle that routed his signal through 3 countries before hitting Simon's basement in Florida. On the table next to the laptop lay the items from the dumpster: the wallet, the cash, and the Omega watch. The watch was the key. For the truth. 2014. Talk to me, Simon, Brill said into the encrypted headset. I'm running a deep dive on Ivan Petrov, Simon said. It's interesting. Before he was a professor at UChicago, he was indeed a scientific advisor. But not just for the Chemical Defense Brigade. He was attached to a special monitoring unit in Syria. GRU oversight. Monitoring what? Compliance. Or the lack of it. His unit was tasked with verifying the destruction of chemical stockpiles. But according to these encrypted logs I pulled from a cached backup of his old university account, they weren't destroying anything. They were inventorying it. For who? For the Assad regime. And for a rogue Russian general named Viktor Zoric. Zoric, Brill repeated. The name had weight. Carver had mentioned it. The one Petrov was afraid of. The one who is now Deputy Minister of Defense in Moscow, Simon said. But back then, he was the commander of the Russian Expeditionary Force in the Homs province. He ran the show. And Petrov was his science guy. Petrov was his conscience, Simon corrected. Or he tried to be. He filed reports. Complaints. He documented unauthorized tests. Tests. Field tests. On villages. Using binaries. Nerve agents mixed on impact to avoid detection by standard sensors. Zoric was treating the Syrian civil war as a live fire laboratory. Brill looked at the watch again. For the truth. Petrov defected because he couldn't take it anymore, Brill said. He defected because he had proof, Simon said. And because he wasn't the only one watching. I ran the name of the first victim. Aris Mercer. The history professor. Mercer was in Syria in 2014 too, working for an NGO called Project Hope. They were delivering medical supplies to rebel-held areas. But Mercer wasn't just handing out bandages. He was documenting war crimes. So Mercer and Petrov were in the same place at the same time. They were in the same village, Simon said. Al-Latamina. April 2014. The site of a suspected chlorine attack that was never officially confirmed. Mercer was there taking photos. Petrov was there taking samples. They knew each other. They were communicating, Simon said. I found emails. Drafts. Never sent, just saved in the drafts folder of a shared account. A dead drop. They were comparing notes. Building a case. Against Zoric. Against Zoric. And they weren't alone. Who else? The email thread had 3 participants. Mercer, Petrov, and a third user. Handle, Poet. Poet, Brill said. Elias Curry, the literature professor in Vermont. Bingo, Simon said. Curry is a refugee from Homs. He was a translator for the NGO Mercer worked for. He got out in 2015. Settled in Vermont. Teaches poetry and comparative lit. So we have 3 witnesses, Brill said. Mercer saw it. Petrov analyzed it. Curry translated it. And 2 of them are dead. And the third is teaching in a small town 3 hours from here by air. Brill stood up. He walked to the window. The alley below was empty, wet with rain. Is there a fourth? Brill asked. I don't know yet, Simon said. The emails reference the squad. It implies a group. But only 3 names are explicit. Keep digging. If there's a fourth, they're on the list. Brill, Simon said, his voice dropping. The symbol on the chalkboard. I ran it. And it's not a null set. It's a military, tactical symbol. Russian Special Forces. Specifically, Spetsnaz target designation. It means objective neutralized. So the killer is Spetsnaz. Or was. The technique is old school. Cold War doctrine. It's a signature, Brill. A message to Zoric that the job is done. It's not done yet, Brill said. Curry is still breathing. I'm tracking flights, Simon said. A charter jet filed a flight plan from Chicago Midway to Burlington, Vermont, 20 minutes ago. Passenger manifest is blocked. That's me, Brill said. I booked it. Good. Because another flight plan was filed from Columbus, Ohio, to Burlington. Private. King Air. Departed an hour ago. Columbus? That's where the call to your cell originated. The VoIP server masked it, but I traced the packet routing. It bounced off a tower in Columbus before it hit the Swiss server. The killer is in Columbus. Was, Simon said. He's airborne. He's ahead of you. Brill grabbed his bag. How far ahead? He lands in Burlington in 40 minutes. You land in 2 hours. He has a head start. He has the element of surprise, Simon said. Curry doesn't know he's coming. Curry thinks he's safe in his ivory tower. Call Curry, Brill said. Warn him. I tried. His number is disconnected. The college switchboard is closed. It's night in Vermont. Find a way, Brill said. Send a fax. Hack his smart fridge. Do something. I'm working on it. But Brill. Yeah. This guy, the killer. He's good. He knew Petrov's schedule. He knew Mercer's lecture time. He knows you're coming. Let him know, Brill said. I want him looking at me. Not Curry. He hung up. He left the hotel room. He took the elevator down to the lobby. He walked out into the Chicago night. The wind was bitter. He got into the rental car and drove to Midway. He had a plane to catch and a race to win. 2 professors were dead because they had seen a war crime. The third was about to die because he had bought a watch. Brill checked the cig in his waistband. The circle was closing, and he was the only thing standing in the gap. Chapter 7. Middlebury, Vermont, was a postcard town nestled in the Champlain Valley, a place where people bought maple syrup in glass jugs and discussed zoning laws with polite intensity. It was 10 p.m. The streets were quiet, slick with a light rain that was threatening to turn to sleet. Dr. Elias Curry lived in a renovated farmhouse 3 miles outside of town. It sat at the end of a gravel driveway, surrounded by ancient oaks that creaked in the wind. Curry was in his study. He was a small man with glasses that were constantly sliding down his nose and a nervous energy that made him pace while he graded papers. He taught comparative literature, specializing in the poetry of exile. He knew the subject well. He stopped pacing. He looked out the window. A car had turned into his driveway. Headlights swept across the front porch. Curry frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He didn't have many visitors. His students emailed him. His colleagues saw him on campus. He walked to the front door. He didn't open it. He peered through the peephole. A man was getting out of a dark sedan. He wore a heavy coat and a hat pulled low. He moved with a heavy, deliberate gait. Curry felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. It was an old fear, one he had brought with him from Damascus. He backed away from the door. He went to the kitchen. He picked up his phone. No signal. Strange, he whispered. He tried the landline on the wall. Dead air. No dial tone. The fear turned to panic. He heard footsteps on the porch. Heavy boots. Then a knock. 3 sharp raps. "Dr. Curry," a voice called out. "Open the door. We need to talk about the past." The voice was accented. Russian. Curry dropped the phone. He ran. He didn't run to the back door. He ran to the basement. He locked the basement door behind him. He scrambled down the wooden stairs. He went to the old coal chute. It was boarded up, painted over. He had meant to fix it for years. He grabbed a crowbar from his workbench. He jammed it into the wood. He pulled. Upstairs, he heard the front door splinter. A kick. Then another. The wood gave way. Footsteps in the hall. "Elias," the voice called. "Don't make this difficult. It's just a conversation." Curry ripped the board free. The metal chute was rusted shut. He hit it with the crowbar. Once. Twice. It clanged open. He squeezed through the opening, scraping his back on the rough metal. He tumbled out onto the wet grass in the side yard. He scrambled up. He ran toward the woods. He didn't look back. Inside the house, Nikolai stood in the kitchen. He saw the open basement door. He smiled. "Rabbit?" he whispered. He walked to the basement door. He didn't rush. He had time. The woods were dark. The professor was old. And Nikolai had a thermal scope on the rifle he had left in the car. He turned back to the front door. He walked out to the sedan. He opened the trunk. He took out a case. Opened it. Assembled the rifle. A VSS Vintorez. Integral suppressor. Subsonic 9x39mm rounds. A sniper's tool for quiet work. He clicked the thermal scope onto the rail. He scanned the tree line. Heat signatures. A deer. A raccoon. And a man running, stumbling, heat blooming from his exertion. Nikolai adjusted the focus. Curry was 200 yards away, moving uphill. "Too easy," Nikolai said. He didn't fire. Not yet. A car accident. That was the plan. He put the rifle back in the trunk. He got into the car. He drove down the driveway. He turned onto the road. He drove slowly, scanning the woods with night vision goggles. He knew where Curry was going. There was only one road. Curry would try to flag down a car, or reach the neighbor's house a mile away. Nikolai drove without lights. He saw Curry emerge from the trees, waving his arms. Curry saw the car. He thought it was salvation. He ran into the middle of the road. "Help!" Curry screamed. "Help me!" Nikolai accelerated. He didn't swerve. He aimed for the center of the lane. Curry realized too late. He froze. The headlights flashed on, blinding him. The impact was wet and heavy. Curry flew over the hood. He hit the windshield, shattering the safety glass but not breaking through. He rolled over the roof and landed on the asphalt behind the car. Nikolai hit the brakes. He reversed. He stopped next to the body. He got out. Curry was alive. Broken. Bleeding. But breathing. Nikolai walked over to him. He crouched down. "I told you," Nikolai said. "Just a conversation." Curry looked up at him. His glasses were gone. His eyes were unfocused. "Zoric," Curry wheezed. "He sends his regards." Nikolai stood up. He walked back to the car. He reached through the broken windshield and put the car in drive. He got out. He steered the car from the outside, guiding it toward the edge of the road. There was a steep embankment, a drop into a ravine. He pushed the accelerator with his hand, then let go. The car shot forward. It went over the edge. It crashed down through the trees, metal tearing, glass breaking. Silence returned to the road. Nikolai walked back to Curry. He picked him up. Curry groaned. Nikolai carried him to the edge of the ravine. He threw him over. Curry tumbled down, landing near the wrecked car. It looked perfect. A deer in the road. A swerve. A crash. The driver thrown from the vehicle. Nikolai slid down the embankment. He checked the scene. He placed Curry's body carefully. Then he reached into the car. He retrieved the rifle case from the trunk. He wiped the steering wheel. He wiped the door handles. He climbed back up to the road. He started walking. He had a second car parked 3 miles away. A contingency. He checked his watch. 10:45 p.m. The circle was closed. 3 names. 3 accidents. Or so it would seem. He pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. "It is done," Nikolai said. "Good," the voice on the other end said. "Return to base." "One loose end," Nikolai said. "Wingfield. Leave him. He is chasing ghosts. By the time he gets there, the trail will be cold. He is persistent. He is irrelevant. Come home." Nikolai hung up. He walked into the darkness. The rain turned to sleet, washing away his footprints on the asphalt. 30 minutes later, a charter jet landed at Burlington International Airport. Brill Wingfield stepped off. He rented a car. He drove fast. He arrived at the farmhouse at midnight. He saw the broken front door. He saw the tire tracks in the mud. He drove down the road. He saw the skid marks. The broken guardrail. He stopped. He got out. He shone his flashlight down into the ravine. He saw the crushed car. "Too late," Brill whispered. He scrambled down the slope. He found Curry. He checked for a pulse. Nothing. But he checked the body. Really checked it. Broken legs. Internal injuries. Consistent with a crash. But there was a bruise on Curry's face, shaped like a boot print. And the car, the driver's seat, was pushed all the way back. Curry was a small man. He couldn't have reached the pedals. Brill looked up at the road. This wasn't an accident. It was a stage play. And the killer had just left the theater. Brill climbed back up to the road. He stood in the sleet. He had missed him by minutes. But the killer had made a mistake. He had left Curry's house open. Brill got in his rental car. He drove back to the farmhouse. The police weren't there yet. No one had called it in. He walked through the broken door. He had a few hours before the plow drivers found the wreck. He needed to find what Curry knew, what the squad knew. He turned on his flashlight. Chapter 8. The front door of Curry's farmhouse hadn't just been kicked in. The jam was splintered with the kind of force that spoke of professional efficiency rather than rage. Brill stepped over the debris. He had pulled his car around the back, hiding it behind a woodshed. He didn't turn on the lights in the house. He used a tactical flashlight with a red lens, sweeping the beam low across the floor. The air inside was cold. The wind blew through the broken door, carrying the wet smell of the storm outside. He moved through the ground floor. Kitchen. Living room. Study. He stopped in the study. It was a small room lined with bookshelves that bowed under the weight of heavy academic texts. A desk sat in the center, piled high with papers. The killer hadn't tossed this room. He hadn't had time. Or he hadn't needed to. He had flushed Curry out, chased him into the night, and finished him on the road. Brill holstered his weapon. He put on gloves. He started with the desk. Grading papers. Bills. A letter from the dean regarding tenure review. Normal life. The debris of a man who thought he had escaped the past. He checked the drawers. Pens. Staples. A bottle of aspirin. Nothing. He moved to the bookshelves. He ran his hand along the spines. Poetry. History. Politics. Titles in English, French, and Arabic. He pulled a few books. Checked behind them. Dust. Where did you keep it, Elias? Brill whispered. If Curry was part of the squad, if he was documenting war crimes with Mercer and Petrov, he wouldn't leave the evidence on a coffee table. He would hide it. Brill looked around the room. He looked for anomalies. The floorboards? Solid. The fireplace? Clean. He looked at the wall above the desk. Framed diplomas. A photo of Curry with a group of students. And a large, framed map of the Middle East. Brill took the map down. The wall behind it was blank. No safe. No hollow space. He put the map back. He walked to the window. He looked out at the dark woods where Curry had run for his life. Why did he run? Because he was terrified. But before he ran, he had tried to hide. Brill had seen the basement door open when he circled the house. He walked to the kitchen. The basement door was ajar. The lock was broken from the inside. Curry had locked himself down there, then fled through the coal chute. Brill went down the stairs. The basement was unfinished. Stone walls. Dirt floor. A furnace hummed in the corner. A workbench was cluttered with tools. Brill swept the red light over the workbench. A crowbar was missing from the shadow outline on the pegboard. That explained the coal chute. He looked at the rest of the basement. Boxes of holiday decorations. Old clothes. And a bookshelf. It was an old metal unit, rusted in places. Filled with paint cans and jars of nails. Brill walked over to it. He moved a can of paint. It was stuck to the shelf. He pulled harder. It came free with a tearing sound. Rust rings. He looked at the shelf itself. It was bolted to the wall. Why bolt a shelf in a basement with a dirt floor? He grabbed the uprights. He pulled. The shelf didn't move. He pushed. It clicked. The entire unit swung inward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a small alcove, cut into the stone foundation. Inside sat a metal firebox. Brill pulled it out. It was heavy, locked with a keypad. He didn't have the code. He carried the box upstairs to the kitchen. He set it on the table. He took a pry bar from his bag. He jammed it into the seam of the lid. He leaned his weight into it. The metal groaned. The lock popped with a sharp crack. He opened the lid. Inside were 3 leather-bound journals. Old. Worn. The leather was cracked and stained with what looked like tea. Or blood. Brill picked up the first one. He opened it. The handwriting was tight, cramped. Arabic mixed with English. Dates. Coordinates. April 12, 2014. Al-Latamina. The smell is sweet. Like apples. But underneath, the copper tang of death. We found them in the cellar. 12 children. No marks. Just foam at the mouth. Pupils pinned. General Zoric was there. I saw him. He was standing by the crater, smoking a cigarette. He looked bored. Brill turned the page. Mercer is taking photos. Petrov is taking soil samples. He says it is sarin, but mixed with something else. Something stable. We have to hide this. If they find us with these notes, we disappear. Brill closed the journal. This was it. The testimony. The eyewitness account that connected a Russian general to a chemical massacre. He picked up the second journal. It was a ledger. Names. Dates. But not of victims. Of perpetrators. Unit 74. Commander, Colonel Volkov. Logistics, Major Kogan. Scientific Advisor, Dr. I. Petrov under duress. It was a roadmap of the entire operation. And the third journal. This one was different. It wasn't a diary. It was a manifest. It listed files. Digital files. Video 1, the drop. Video 2, the triage. Video 3, the confession. Confession? Brill whispered. He read the entry. Petrov recorded him. Zoric. Drunk. Boasting about the effectiveness of the binary agent. He said it was cleaner than a bullet. Cheaper than a bomb. The drive is with the biologist. The fourth member. Brill froze. The biologist. Simon had said there might be a fourth. Curry confirmed it. He scanned the page. No name. Just a reference. The biologist took the hard evidence. The samples. The drive. She went west. Seattle. Seattle. Brill pulled out his phone. He took pictures of the pages. He sent them to Simon. I have the journals. Curry documented everything. Zoric is the target. And there's a fourth witness. A biologist in Seattle. She has the physical evidence. He waited. The wind howled outside, rattling the broken front door. His phone buzzed. Seattle, Simon wrote. I'm running university faculties. Biology departments. Looking for Syrian connections. Refugees. Or defectors. Hurry, Brill typed. The killer is done here. He's moving. Got a hit, Simon replied seconds later. Dr. Amira Kasser. University of Washington. Evolutionary Biology. Syrian National. Asylum, granted 2015. Address. Sent. Brill put the journals in his bag. He grabbed the firebox. He couldn't leave it. He walked to the back door. He stopped. Headlights. Coming up the driveway. Not the police. They would have sirens. This was a single vehicle. Moving fast. The killer was coming back. No. Nikolai had been thorough. He had staged the accident. He wouldn't risk returning. Unless he realized he missed the journals. Brill stepped into the shadows of the mudroom. He drew the cig. The car stopped. The engine died. Car doors opened. 2 of them. Check the back, a voice said. American accent. Professional. Copy. Flashlight beams cut through the windows. FBI, Brill whispered. Or cleaners. He watched through the glass. 2 men in windbreakers. They moved with tactical precision. Weapons drawn. They weren't here to investigate a car accident. They were here for the house. Carver had said the agencies were blinded. But maybe someone else was watching. Maybe the killer had a team cleaning up his wake. Doors open, the first man said. Breach marks. Clear it. They came through the front door. Brill slipped out the back. He moved into the woods, following the path Curry had taken. He didn't run. He moved silently, placing his feet with care. He reached the tree line. He looked back. Flashlights were sweeping the house. He had the journals. He had the name. Amira Kasser. He had to get to Seattle. He made his way to his rental car, hidden behind the woodshed. He rolled it down the gravel drive in neutral, engine off, until he hit the main road. He started the engine. The clock had reset. The killer was airborne. The cleanup crew was on the ground. And the last witness was sleeping in a city on the other side of the continent, unaware that the war she thought she had escaped was coming to her front door. Brill hit the gas. Next stop, Seattle. Chapter 9. The library in Curry's farmhouse was a dead end for the police, but for Brill, it had been a gold mine. The journals were heavy in his bag as he drove south, putting distance between himself and the cleanup crew sweeping the house. He needed a secure connection. He needed intel. He found a diner near Albany, New York, at 4 a.m. It was open, smelling of bacon grease and stale coffee. He ordered black coffee and toast, sat in the back booth, and booted up his laptop. He scanned the pages of the journals he hadn't sent to Simon yet. General Viktor Zoric. The name was written in Curry's cramped hand, over and over again. Sometimes with fear. Sometimes with rage. Brill typed the name into the secure chat window. Zoric, he sent. Give me everything. Simon's reply was instantaneous. He had been working while Brill drove. General Viktor Zoric. Born 1968, Volgograd. Career military. Commanded the 4th Chemical Defense Brigade in Syria, 2013 to 2015. Known as the Alchemist by local insurgents because he turned villages into ghost towns without firing a shot. Where is he now? Brill asked. Moscow. Deputy Minister of Defense. But he travels. He's been lobbying hard against sanctions. He presents himself as a reformer. A moderate. He's cleaning house, Brill typed. Why now? Because The Hague is waking up, Simon replied. I hacked into the ICC's sealed indictment database. It's not easy, by the way. Their firewalls are Swiss. And There's a sealed indictment against Zoric. War crimes. Crimes against humanity. Specifically, the use of prohibited chemical agents in the Homs province. It's dated 3 weeks ago. It's scheduled to be unsealed next month. And the witnesses? The indictment relies on testimony from protected sources. 3 affidavits. They match the profiles of Mercer, Petrov, and Curry. So Zoric knows, Brill typed. He has a mole in The Hague. Or he just knows who was there. He knows who saw him standing by the crater. Brill took a bite of toast. It tasted like cardboard. What about the 4th? Brill asked. Amira Kasser. She's not on the witness list, Simon said. The ICC doesn't know about her. Or if they do, they haven't deposed her yet. That makes her the wild card, Brill typed. Zoric is killing the known witnesses to break the case. But if Amira has physical evidence, samples, videos, she's not just a witness. She's the smoking gun. Where is Zoric right now? Simon paused. The cursor blinked. He's in Geneva, Simon wrote. Attending a summit on global security protocols. Irony is dead, Brill. He's directing the operation from Switzerland. Likely. He has a team. The shooter at Pembroke was a distraction. The man in Chicago, Nikolai, is the cleaner. And the team at Curry's house? Probably local contractors or embassy security. Nikolai is the problem, Brill typed. He's good. He's fast. And he's ahead of me. He's not just ahead of you, Simon said. He's in the air. I tracked a private charter from Burlington to Seattle-Tacoma International. Departed 2 hours ago. He knows about Amira. He found the 3rd journal before you did. No, Brill typed. He didn't search the house. He staged the accident and left. But if Zoric has a mole in The Hague, maybe he has a mole in the NGO records too. Maybe he found Amira's name on an old payroll list. She's in danger, Simon said. Imminent. I know. I'm booking a flight. Commercial is too slow. You need speed. I need a jet, Brill typed. Call Carver. Tell him the price just went up. Carver is already asking questions. He wants to know why you're in Vermont. Tell him I'm sightseeing. And tell him to have a Gulfstream waiting at Albany International in an hour. Or I send the journals to the New York Times and burn his asset. He won't like that. He doesn't have to like it. He just has to pay for it. Brill closed the laptop. He finished his coffee. Zoric was the architect. Nikolai was the hammer. And Amira Kasser was the nail. Brill stood up. He left cash on the table. He walked out into the cold morning air. The sun was just starting to crack the horizon, painting the sky in bloody streaks of red and orange. General Zoric was sitting in a 5-star hotel in Geneva, drinking espresso and believing he was untouchable. He thought he could erase history by killing the people who remembered it. He was wrong. History had a way of fighting back. Brill got into his rental car. He drove to the airport. He wasn't just investigating a murder anymore. Chapter 10. The motel was called the Red Pine Motor Court. It sat off a 2-lane highway in central Pennsylvania, surrounded by woods that were turning brown with the season. The neon sign out front was missing the O in motor, so it read MTR Court, which felt about right for a place that charged by the hour and didn't ask for ID. Brill parked his rental car in the lot of a diner across the road. He sat in the driver's seat watching room 12. Simon had found the trail. It hadn't been hard. Mercenaries were sloppy with digital hygiene when they were waiting for a paycheck. The shooter at Pembroke, the terrorist, had used a burner phone to check a bank account in the Cayman Islands. The IP address led back to the Wi-Fi at the Red Pine. Brill checked his watch. 11 a.m. The shooter had been holed up for 2 days, waiting for the heat to die down, waiting for the wire transfer to clear. But the wire hadn't cleared. Simon had frozen it. Just enough to make the bank flag it for review. Just enough to make the mercenary nervous. The door to room 12 opened. A young man stepped out. He looked like the photos from the news, but different. No hoodie. No wild eyes. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt. He looked like a college student on a road trip, except for the way he scanned the parking lot. He walked to the vending machine near the office. He bought a soda. He walked back. He didn't look like a fanatic. He didn't look like a martyr. He looked like an employee who was annoyed about his direct deposit. Brill got out of the car. He crossed the road. He didn't run. He walked with the heavy, tired gait of a traveler looking for a room. He reached the vending machine. He bought a bottle of water. He walked toward room 12. The young man was unlocking the door. He heard footsteps. He turned. "Help you?" he asked. American accent. Flat. Midwestern. "Just looking for the ice machine," Brill said. "Office," the kid said, pointing. "Thanks." Brill walked past him. As he passed, he pivoted. He grabbed the kid by the flannel shirt and slammed him into the door. The kid was fast. He tried to reach for his waistband. Brill drove a knee into the kid's thigh. A dead leg strike. The kid grunted and buckled. Brill shoved him through the open door. He followed him in and kicked it shut. The room was dark. The curtains were drawn. A TV was playing a game show on mute. The kid scrambled back, trying to get to the nightstand. A gun was there. A Beretta. Brill stepped on his hand. Hard. "Don't," Brill said. The kid yelled in pain. He looked up at Brill. The fear in his eyes wasn't the fear of a true believer meeting his maker. It was the fear of a contractor who realized he had violated the terms of service. "Who are you?" The kid gasped. "FBI." "If I were FBI, you'd be in cuffs," Brill said. He picked up the Beretta, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, tossed it on the bed. "I'm the guy who froze your bank account." The kid's eyes widened. "My money. You hacked the transfer." "I paused it. It can be unpaused. Or it can be deleted. Depends on how this conversation goes." Brill pulled a chair from the small table and sat down. He looked at the kid. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the kid whispered. "Ethan Miller." "Ethan, you made quite a splash at Pembroke." "I did the job," Ethan said defensively. "I followed the script. The slogan. The targets. I did exactly what they paid for." "Who is they?" "I don't know. It was a dark web contract. Encrypted chat. Blind drop." "You killed 3 people for a blind drop." "It was $50,000, Ethan said. "And a bonus for the media coverage." "You're not a jihadist, Ethan. You're a whore." Ethan flinched. "It's just business." Mercer was a target. The others, they were collateral. To sell the story. "The story was a lie," Brill said. "You shouted a slogan you didn't believe to cover up an assassination. So what? People die every day. People like Mercer die for a reason. Why did they want him dead?" "I don't know. I told you, I was just the trigger. The client wanted him gone. Publicly. Loudly. Did you ever speak to the client? No. Just text. But? Ethan hesitated. But what? There was a call. Once. Before the job. To confirm the location. The voice, it was weird. Digital. But the cadence, it wasn't American. It sounded Russian. Or Eastern European. And the money. Cryptocurrency. Laundered through a mixer. But the initial deposit, it came from a shell company in Cyprus. Cyprus. A favorite banking haven for Russian oligarchs. And generals. Did they tell you what to do after? Lay low. Wait for the second payment. Then disappear. I have a fake passport. A ticket to Thailand. You're not going to Thailand, Brill said. He leaned forward. You're a loose end, Ethan. You know too much. You know it was a contract. You know about the Russian voice. You think they're going to pay you and let you sip Mai Tais on a beach? They have to pay me. It's the deal. The deal is done, Brill said. The media bought the terror story. The FBI bought it. You served your purpose. Now you're just a liability. Ethan went pale. You mean they're going to burn me? They're going to erase you. A car pulled into the lot outside. Gravel crunched under tires. Brill stood up. He moved to the window. He peered through the gap in the curtains. A dark sedan. A man getting out. Nikolai. He recognized the walk. The heavy, deliberate steps. The coat. You have visitors, Brill said. Is it them? Ethan asked, hope rising in his voice. Is it the cleanup crew? It's the cleaner, Brill said. He turned to Ethan. Listen to me. That man outside isn't here to give you a check. He's here to put a bullet in your head and make it look like a suicide. A distraught terrorist overcome by guilt. No, they wouldn't. He's walking to the door right now, Brill said. He has a suppressed pistol in his pocket. He's going to knock. If you open it, you die. Ethan scrambled up. He looked at the Beretta on the bed. Don't, Brill said. It's empty. A knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Ethan, a voice called. Open up. Delivery. It was the same voice Brill had heard on the phone in Chicago. Nikolai. Ethan looked at Brill. What do I do? Get in the bathroom, Brill whispered. Lock the door. Get in the tub. You're going to save me. I'm going to use you. Ethan ran to the bathroom. He slammed the door. Brill moved to the side of the entrance. He drew his cig. The lock clicked. Nikolai didn't wait for an answer. He picked it. The door swung open. Nikolai stepped in. He had the Makarov in his hand. He scanned the room. Saw the empty bed. Saw the bathroom door. He moved toward the bathroom. Brill stepped out from the wall. Hello, Nikolai. Nikolai spun. He didn't hesitate. He fired. Phut. The round hit the wall, inches from Brill's head. Plaster dust exploded. Brill fired back. His shot took Nikolai in the shoulder. Nikolai grunted, spun, and dropped to a knee. He returned fire, suppressing Brill, forcing him back behind the dresser. Nikolai didn't stay to fight. He knew he was compromised. He rolled toward the open door. Brill popped up. Fired again. He missed. Nikolai was fast. He was out the door and running toward his car. Brill chased him. He ran out into the parking lot. Nikolai was behind the sedan, using the engine block as cover. He fired 2 more shots. Brill took cover behind a pickup truck. "You're slowing down, Nikolai," Brill shouted. "I'm just getting started," Nikolai yelled back. He jumped into the car. The engine roared. He peeled out of the lot, tires screaming on the asphalt. Brill raised his gun. He aimed for the tires. He fired. The rear tire blew. The car swerved, fishtailing. But Nikolai kept control. He drove on the rim, sparks flying, disappearing down the highway. Brill lowered the gun. He could chase him. But he had something more important here. He walked back to room 12. Ethan was standing in the bathroom doorway, shaking. He shot at you." "He missed," Brill said. "He was going to kill me." "Yes." Brill holstered his weapon. "Pack your bag, Ethan. We're leaving." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. And then you're going to tell me everything. Every text. Every email. Every Bitcoin address. And then," Brill said, looking at the door where Nikolai had stood, "we're going to find out who the fourth target is. Before he does." Ethan grabbed his backpack. He looked at Brill with a mix of fear and awe. "Who are you?" "I'm the guy who cleans up the mess," Brill said. He walked out to the parking lot. He had the shooter. He had the witness. But Nikolai was still out there. Wounded. Angry. Chapter 11. The motel room was quiet, except for the hum of the mini fridge and the rapid, shallow breathing of Ethan Miller. Brill stood by the window, watching the parking lot. The dark sedan Nikolai had used was gone, leaving only skid marks and the ghost of burnt rubber in the air. "He's gone," Brill said. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, clutching his backpack like a shield. "He'll come back. He'll finish it." "Not here," Brill said. "He's compromised. He knows I'm here. He knows I have a gun. He's a professional, Ethan. Professionals don't fight losing battles. They regroup." "So what now? We wait for him?" "No. We move." Brill turned from the window. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere off the grid." "I don't have anywhere. I told you I was going to Thailand." "Thailand is canceled," Brill said. "You're going to a safe house. One of mine. In the Catskills. No cell service. No neighbors. Just you and the trees. And you." "I'm going to Seattle." Ethan looked up. "Seattle? Why?" "Because Nikolai isn't done," Brill said. "He missed you. That's a failure. But he still has a mission. And the mission is to close the circle." "Who's in Seattle?" "The fourth name," Brill said. "The one you didn't know about." He walked to the door. "Let's go. We take my car. We leave yours here." They walked out into the cold Pennsylvania afternoon. Brill scanned the tree line, the road, the rooftops. Nothing. Just the wind and the traffic on the highway. They got into the rental car. Brill drove. He took back roads, avoiding the interstate. He drove for 3 hours, looping through small towns, checking for a tail. There was none. Nikolai was gone. Or he was already on a plane. Brill dropped Ethan at a cabin near Woodstock. It was owned by a shell company Brill used for storage. It had food, water, and a generator. "Stay inside," Brill told him. "Don't use the phone. Don't go into town. If anyone comes up that driveway who isn't me, you run into the woods and you don't stop." Ethan nodded. He looked small standing on the porch. A mercenary who had realized he was just a pawn. "What about the money?" Ethan asked. "The 50,000. "Forget the money," Brill said. "Focus on keeping your head attached to your neck. Brill drove away. He headed for Albany, the airport. He called Simon on the secure line. "Status?" Brill asked. "Nikolai is moving," Simon said. He ditched the sedan in a parking garage in Harrisburg. He rented a new car. Drove to Philadelphia. He's on a flight to Seattle right now. First class. He's fast. He's efficient. He knows he burned the Pennsylvania op. He's cutting his losses and going for the primary objective. Amira Kasser. Exactly. I've been digging into her background. It's complicated. Complicated how? She's a biologist, yes. But she wasn't just working for an NGO in Syria. She was the head of a field lab. Mobile testing. She was the one who confirmed the sarin usage in 2013. The UN used her data for the report. So she's credible. She's irrefutable. And she has something else. What? I found a cloud backup of her old emails. Encrypted, but old encryption. She mentions a box. A physical cache. Samples. Hard drives. The original field notes. The evidence, Brill said. The stuff Nikolai drilled out of Petrov's computer. If Zoric gets that box, the ICC case collapses. Without the physical evidence, it's just witness testimony. And dead witnesses don't testify. Where is she? She's listed as faculty at UW. But she lives off campus. A house in Wallingford. Quiet neighborhood. Does Nikolai know the address? He has the same resources I do. Maybe better. If he found Curry, he can find her. When does he land? 8 p.m. Pacific time. You land at 7:30. It's going to be tight. It's a race, Brill said. And Brill? Yeah. The shooter. Ethan. Did he give you anything else? He said. The voice on the phone sounded Russian. And the money came from Cyprus. Standard operating procedure, Simon said. But it confirms Zoric is funding this out of his own pocket. Or a black budget. This isn't a state-sanctioned hit. This is personal. It's survival, Brill said. For Zoric. And for us. He arrived at the airport. The Gulfstream was waiting. He boarded. The cabin was quiet, luxurious. A stark contrast to the motel room and the cabin in the woods. He tried to sleep, but his mind was racing. Mercer. Petrov. Curry. 3 dead. Amira was the last wall standing between a war criminal and a comfortable retirement. And Nikolai was coming to tear it down. Brill checked his gear. The cig. The ceramic knife. The flashbangs he'd made from fireworks in Vegas. He still had 2 left in his bag. He looked out the window as the plane taxied. The sun was setting over the Adirondacks. By the time he landed in Seattle, it would be dark. Nikolai liked the dark. But Brill lived in it. He closed his eyes. Chapter 12. The Gulfstream touched down at King County International Airport at 7:28 p.m. The tires chirped against the wet tarmac, a sound that felt like a starter pistol going off. Brill was out of his seat before the plane stopped taxiing. He didn't have luggage. He had a go bag and a problem. 30 minutes. That was the margin. Nikolai's flight was scheduled to land at SeaTac at 8 p.m. SeaTac was 12 miles south. King County, Boeing Field, was closer to the city, closer to Wallingford. Brill had bought himself distance, but traffic in Seattle didn't care about margins. He stepped off the plane into a mist that wasn't quite rain, but soaked through his jacket in seconds. The air smelled of jet fuel and pine. A car was waiting on the tarmac. Not a limo. A dark gray Subaru Outback. Common. Invisible in the Pacific Northwest. The keys were on the front tire. Brill grabbed them, threw his bag in the passenger seat, and slid behind the wheel. He fired the engine. He dialed Simon on the secure line. "Clock's running," Brill said. "Nikolai is on approach," Simon said. "His flight is on time. He'll be on the ground in 24 minutes. Customs will slow him down, but not much. He's traveling on a diplomatic passport under the name Viktor Volkov." "Bold," Brill said, pulling out of the private terminal lot. He merged onto Airport Way, heading north. The wipers slapped a steady rhythm against the glass. "He's not hiding anymore," Simon said. "He's racing. He knows you know. He knows the timeline is collapsing. Tell me about the target. Is she home?" "Amira Kasser. 4218 Meridian Avenue North. Wallingford. I'm tracking her cell phone. It's pinging off the tower 2 blocks from her house. She's stationary." "Is she alone?" "Hard to tell from a cell signal. But she lives alone. No husband. No kids. She teaches, goes to the gym, goes home. A quiet life for someone sitting on a war crimes conviction." "Quiet lives are the easiest to end," Brill said. He navigated the slick streets. Traffic was heavy on I-5, a river of red taillights reflected in the wet pavement. He took the exits, weaving through the industrial district, using surface streets to bypass the gridlock. He drove with a controlled aggression, pushing the Subaru hard through yellow lights. "What about security?" Brill asked. "Does she have an alarm?" "Standard ADT system. Door sensors. Motion in the living room. It's active. I could disable it, but if I do, the monitoring company calls her. That might spook her." "Leave it. I want to know if someone else trips it." "Brill," Simon's voice dropped. "I found something else in her file. A medical record from Damascus. 2013. And she was treated for exposure. Low grade. Sarin. She wasn't just testing the samples," Brill said. "She was in the cloud. She survived it. But it left scars. Pulmonary issues. She's fragile, Brill. If Nikolai gets to her, she won't last long in a fight. He's not going to fight her. He's going to execute her." Brill checked the time. 7:45 p.m. 15 minutes until Nikolai landed. Maybe another 30 to get a car and get to the city. Brill had 45 minutes to secure a woman who didn't know he existed and convince her to run. He crossed the bridge into Wallingford. The neighborhood was leafy, quiet, lined with craftsman bungalows and Subarus. It looked safe. It looked like the kind of place where people worried about composting and property taxes, not Spetsnaz hit squads. He found Meridian Avenue. He killed the headlights. He rolled past number 4218. It was a small house, blue wood siding, a porch swing that moved slightly in the wind. Lights were on in the living room. The curtains were drawn, but silhouettes moved against the fabric. One silhouette. She was home. Brill parked 3 houses down in front of a hydrant. He didn't plan on being there long enough to get a ticket. He watched the street. It was empty. Rain glistened on the asphalt. "Nikolai just landed," Simon said. "Wheels down." "Does he have a team?" "Not that I can see. He's moving solo. He's in a hurry. Keep tracking him. Let me know when he leaves the airport." "You have maybe 30 minutes, Brill. Get her out." Brill put the earpiece in his pocket. He checked the SIG. He checked the flashbangs. He got out of the car. He walked up the sidewalk. He didn't run. Running drew eyes. He walked like a neighbor returning a borrowed tool. He stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked. He knocked. 3 solid raps. Silence inside. The silhouette on the curtain stopped moving. "Dr. Kasser?" Brill called out. "My name is Wingfield. I need to speak to you. It's about Elias Curry." He used the name as a key. If she was part of the squad, she would know it. She would know he was dead. The curtain twitched. An eye appeared in the gap. Dark, fearful. "Go away," a voice said. Female. Accented. "I don't know any Elias." "He's dead, Amira," Brill said. He spoke to the door frame. "He died last night in Vermont. A car accident that wasn't an accident. Ivan Petrov is dead in Chicago. Aris Mercer is dead at Pembroke. You're the last one." The silence stretched. He could hear her breathing on the other side of the wood. "You have the box," Brill said. "The samples. The drive. Zoric wants them back." The name hit the door like a physical blow. Locks clicked. 3 of them. The door opened. Amira Kasser stood there. She was small, thin, with dark hair streaked with gray. She held a kitchen knife in her hand, her knuckles white. She looked terrified, but her eyes were steady. They were the eyes of someone who had seen the worst the world could offer and was still standing. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm the guy who's going to keep you alive for the next hour," Brill said. He stepped inside. He closed the door and locked it. The living room was cluttered with books and papers. A teacup sat on a side table, steam rising. It was a normal room in a normal house. "You said Elias is dead." "They're all dead. Zoric is cleaning house. The indictment is coming down, and he knows it." Amira lowered the knife. She leaned against the wall, her strength draining away. I told them we should have gone to The Hague years ago. But Ivan, he wanted to wait. He wanted to be sure. It's too late for Ivan. It's not too late for you. But we have to leave. Now." "Leave? Where?" "Anywhere but here. There's a man coming. Nikolai. He's a cleaner. He landed at SeaTac 10 minutes ago. He'll be here in 20. Amira looked around the room. At her books. At her life. "I can't just leave. The evidence, it's not here." Brill froze. "Where is it?" "It's safe," she said. "In a deposit box. Downtown." "Key." "I have the key." She touched a chain around her neck. "Good. Get your coat. Get your shoes. We're going." "My passport," she said. "I need my passport." "You don't need a passport. You're not leaving the country. You're going into federal protective custody." "No," she said. Sharp. "No feds. They leak. They talk. That's how Zoric found us. Someone talked." "Then you're going with me." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm the only one standing in your living room, telling you to run instead of putting a bullet in your head." Amira studied him. She looked at the scar on his chin. The way he stood away from the windows. "Okay," she said. She ran to the bedroom. Brill stayed in the living room. He watched the street through the gap in the curtains. A car turned onto the block. Headlights swept the porch. It wasn't a taxi. It was a black sedan. Lincoln Town Car. Airport rental. It slowed. Brill's phone buzzed. "Simon." "He's moving fast," Simon said. "He bypassed baggage claim. Rented a car. He's on I-5. He's 10 minutes out." "Someone else is here," Brill said. "What?" "A car. Black Lincoln. Just pulled up." The car stopped across the street. The lights went out. Two men got out. They weren't Nikolai. They were younger, wearing windbreakers. They moved with a tactical precision that screamed government. Or contractors. "Simon," Brill whispered. "Run a plate. Washington tag. X-ray Yankee 449. 1 second. That's a fleet vehicle. Registered to a holding company in Virginia. North Star Solutions." "Contractors," Brill said. "Zoric hired a local team to secure the site before Nikolai arrives. Or to kill her." They're walking up the driveway. Brill turned toward the bedroom. "Amira. We're out of time." She came out. She had a coat on. A small bag over her shoulder. She still held the knife. "What is it?" "Company," Brill said. "Front door. We're going out the back." He grabbed her arm, guided her to the kitchen. The back door had a window. Brill looked out. The backyard was small, fenced. An alley ran behind it. But there was a man in the alley, standing by the gate, smoking. They were surrounded. 3 men, Brill calculated. 2 front, 1 back. He looked at Amira. "Can you run?" "Yes." "When I open this door, you run for the fence on the left. Climb over into the neighbor's yard. Go to the street. My car is the Subaru 3 houses down. Wait for me there." "What about the man in the alley?" "He's mine." Brill checked the cig. "Get ready." He unlocked the back door. He didn't open it gently. He kicked it. The door flew open, banging against the siding. The man in the alley looked up, startled. He dropped his cigarette, reached inside his jacket. Brill stepped out on the porch. He raised the gun. He didn't shoot to kill. Not yet. Gunshots brought police. Police brought delays. He fired a round into the wooden post next to the man's head. Splinters flew. The man flinched, ducking. "Run!" Brill yelled to Amira. She bolted. She was fast. She hit the grass and scrambled for the side fence. The man in the alley recovered. He brought his weapon up. A silenced pistol. He aimed at Amira. Brill fired again. This time he didn't miss. He hit the man in the shoulder. The man spun, dropping his gun. "Clear!" Brill shouted. He heard the front door crash inward. The other 2 were coming in. Brill jumped off the porch. He didn't follow Amira. He ran toward the alley gate. He needed to draw them. He needed to make noise. He reached the wounded man, kicked him in the chest. The man groaned. Brill vaulted the back fence into the alley. He landed on wet pavement. The back door of the house filled with light. The 2 contractors were there. They saw him. Suppressed shots thwipped into the asphalt around his feet. Brill turned and ran down the alley. Away from the car. Away from Amira. He was the rabbit now. And Nikolai was 10 minutes away. Chapter 13. The rain in Seattle was a relentless, cold mist that turned the world gray and slick. Brill ran down the alley behind Amira Kasser's house, his boots splashing in puddles that reflected the strobe lights of a police cruiser racing past on the main street. He heard shouts behind him. The contractors. They were moving fast, boots pounding on the asphalt. He reached the end of the alley and turned right, cutting through a narrow gap between 2 garages. He emerged onto a side street lined with parked cars. He didn't stop. He sprinted toward the Subaru, parked 3 houses down. Amira wasn't there. Brill slowed, scanning the shadows. Had she been caught? Had she panicked and run the wrong way. Then he saw movement. Across the street. Behind a hedge. He whistled low. A bird call. Amira stepped out. She was shaking, her face pale in the streetlights. She clutched her bag to her chest like a shield. Brill crossed the street. He grabbed her arm, guiding her toward the car. "Get in," he hissed. Down low. They scrambled into the Subaru. Brill started the engine, leaving the lights off. He pulled away from the curb, keeping the speed slow, normal. In the rearview mirror, he saw two figures burst out of the side street. They looked left, then right. One raised a radio to his mouth. "They're calling it in," Brill said. "We have maybe 5 minutes before the perimeter locks down." "Where are we going?" Amira asked. Her voice was thin, reedy. "Downtown. To the bank." "It's closed." "It's night." "Banks have night deposits. ATMs. Lobbies. Is the box in the vault or a self-service area?" "Self-service," she said. "Biometric access. 24 hours. Good. Which bank?" "First National. On 4th Avenue." Brill turned onto 45th Street, heading for the I-5 on-ramp. Traffic was heavy, a river of red and white lights. He merged aggressively, cutting off a Prius. "Nikolai is close," Brill said. "He landed 20 minutes ago. If those contractors were his advance team, he's probably directing them from the car." "Who is Nikolai?" "The man who killed Ivan Petrov. And Elias Curry." Amira flinched. She looked out the window, at the rain-streaked glass. "Ivan told me to hide the evidence," she whispered. "He said if we ever needed it, it would be our insurance." "But it wasn't insurance. It was a target." "It's both," Brill said. "But right now, it's the only leverage we have." He checked the mirrors. No tail yet. The rain helped. It blurred license plates and silhouettes. They reached downtown. The skyscrapers rose into the mist, their tops lost in the clouds. The streets were quieter here, the business district emptying out for the night. Brill parked a block away from the bank. "Stay here," he said. "No. I have to open it. It scans my retina." "Fine. But stick to me. If I say move, you move. If I say drop, you drop." They got out. The wind off the Puget Sound was bitter. They walked to the bank. The lobby was lit with harsh, fluorescent light. ATMs lined one wall. A heavy steel door marked Safe Deposit stood at the back. Amira swiped a card at the door. It buzzed. They went in. She walked to the scanner next to the steel door. She leaned in. A red light swept her eye. Access granted. The door clicked open. Inside, rows of metal boxes lined the walls. It was quiet. Sterile. Amira went to box 402. She inserted her key. Turned it. She pulled the box out. "Open it," Brill said. She lifted the lid. Inside was a hard drive. Ruggedized. Waterproof. And 3 glass vials sealed in protective casing, nestled in foam. The soil samples. The sarin residue. "This is it?" Brill asked. "This is everything. The logs. The photos. The chemical analysis." Brill took the box. "We're leaving." "Wait," she said. I need to check something." "No time. We check it later." He grabbed her arm. They turned to leave. The lobby door opened. A man stepped in. He wore a long coat, wet with rain. He shook an umbrella, closing it with a snap. He looked up. It was Nikolai. He smiled. A cold, flat expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. Kasser," Nikolai said. "And Mr. Wingfield. How convenient." He reached into his coat. Brill didn't wait. He shoved Myra behind a row of ATMs. Down. He drew the SIG. Nikolai brought up the Makarov. They fired at the same time. The glass front of the ATM shattered. Sparks flew. Nikolai ducked behind a marble pillar. "You're persistent, Wingfield," Nikolai shouted. "I'll give you that." "I'm annoying," Brill yelled back. "It's a gift." He fired 2 rounds at the pillar, suppressing Nikolai. "Amira," Brill whispered. "The back door." "Is there one?" "Employee exit," she said, pointing. "Through the break room." "Go. Now." She ran. Nikolai popped out, firing. Brill returned fire, covering her. He backed toward the break room door. Nikolai moved. He was fast. He vaulted a desk, closing the distance. Brill fired his last round. The slide locked back. He ejected the mag. Reloaded. Nikolai was 10 feet away. Brill slammed the new mag home. Racked the slide. He fired. Nikolai flinched, a round grazing his arm. He dove behind the counter. Brill turned and ran. He burst into the break room. Amira was struggling with the rear door. It was locked with a keypad. "Code?" Brill asked. "I don't know. It's employee only." Brill kicked the door. The lock held. He shot the keypad. Sparks showered down. The lock disengaged with a groan. He pushed the door open. They spilled into the alley. Rain hit them instantly. "Run!" Brill shouted. They ran toward the street where the car was parked. Behind them, the bank door slammed open. Nikolai was coming. And he wasn't alone anymore. 2 black SUVs screeched to a halt at the end of the alley. Men piled out. The contractors. "Cut them off," a voice yelled. Brill looked left. Blocked. Right. Blocked. He looked up. A fire escape. "Up," Brill ordered. He boosted Amira onto the ladder. She climbed. Brill followed. Bullets sparked off the brick wall around them. They reached the roof. Brill pulled Amira over the edge. They were trapped on top of the building. But they had the evidence. And they were alive. For now. "Keep moving," Brill said. Roof to roof. They ran across the wet tar, jumping low walls, heading deeper into the maze of the city skyline. Chapter 14. The rooftop of the bank building offered a view of Seattle that was both beautiful and tactical. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, blurring the city lights into streaks of neon and sodium vapor. Brill stood near the edge, looking down. The alley was a kill zone. 2 SUVs blocked the exit. Men in tactical gear were setting up a perimeter. He counted 6. Plus the 2 he'd left in the house. Plus Nikolai. "They're not just contractors," Brill said. "They're moving like a unit. Flanking. Covering angles." Amira huddled against a ventilation shaft, clutching the metal box to her chest. She was shivering, her face wet with rain and fear. "How do we get down?" she asked. "We don't," Brill said. "Not yet. We go across." He pointed to the adjacent building. An old brick structure, 4 stories high, separated from the bank by a 10-foot gap. "Jump." Amira looked at the gap. Looked at the drop. "I can't." "You can. It's lower. Gravity does the work. You just have to commit. And if I miss, then the fall kills you instead of Nikolai. Same result, less paperwork." The roof access door behind them groaned. Someone was hitting it with a ram. "Time to go," Brill said. He grabbed her arm. "Run. Don't look down." Just look at the other roof. They ran. 10 feet. 5. Brill shoved her. Jump. She leapt. She cleared the gap, landing hard on the gravel roof of the next building. She rolled, hitting a skylight frame. Brill followed. He landed next to her, absorbing the impact with a grunt. He pulled her up. Keep moving. They scrambled across the second roof. Behind them, the door to the bank roof burst open. Flashlight beams cut through the mist. Contact, a voice yelled. They're on the east roof. Bullets sparked off the gravel around them. Brill pushed Amira toward a fire escape on the far side. Down. Fast. They descended the iron stairs. The metal was slick. Amira slipped, catching herself on the railing. Careful, Brill said. They reached the alley level. This one was clear. For now. Brill led her out to the street. It was 3rd Avenue. Busy. Buses. Cars. People. Blend in, Brill said. He took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, covering her wet clothes. Walk normal. They merged into the pedestrian traffic. Where are we going? Amira whispered. My car is burned, Brill said. Your house is burned. We need wheels. He scanned the street. A parking garage entrance was half a block away. In there. They walked into the garage. Brill moved methodically, checking cars. He needed something older. Something without a transponder key. He found a Ford truck. F-150. 10 years old. Contractor plates. He broke the window with the butt of his gun. Reached in. Unlocked it. He hot-wired it in 30 seconds. Get in. They pulled out of the garage. Brill turned south, away from Wallingford, away from the bank. We're clear, Amira said, letting out a breath. No, Brill said. We're not. He checked the rearview mirror. A black SUV was 3 cars back. Same make as the ones at the bank. They have a tracker? Amira asked. No. They have eyes in the sky. Or they hacked the traffic cameras. Nikolai isn't playing. The SUV accelerated. It pulled into the oncoming lane, bypassing traffic. Hold on, Brill said. He floored the truck. The V8 roared. He cut the wheel hard right, diving down a side street toward the waterfront. The SUV followed. It was faster. More stable. He's going to ram us, Brill said. He saw the headlights closing in the mirror. Brill slammed on the brakes. The SUV swerved to avoid hitting them. It clipped the rear bumper, spinning the truck. Brill fought the wheel. The truck slid sideways, tires screaming. He regained control. Punched the gas. They were on Alaskan Way now. Under the viaduct. Concrete pillars flashing by. There's another one. Amira screamed. A second SUV blocked the road ahead. Sideways. Men standing behind the doors with rifles. Get down. Brill yelled. He aimed the truck at the gap between the SUV and the concrete pillar. It was tight. Maybe 6 feet. He didn't slow down. The gunman opened fire. The windshield shattered. Glass sprayed the cab. Brill kept his head low, driving by instinct. The truck hit the gap. Metal shrieked as the side of the F-150 scraped the pillar. The mirror tore off. They punched through. Are you hit? Brill asked. No. I don't think so. Amira was curled in a ball on the floorboard, still holding the box. Brill checked the mirror. The first SUV was still behind them. The second was turning to join the chase. We can't outrun them, Brill said. Not in this. He needed a distraction. A big one. He looked ahead. The ferry terminal. A ferry was loading cars. The gate was open. "We're taking a boat," Brill said. He swerved toward the terminal, crashed through the wooden barrier arm. He drove onto the ferry deck. The deckhands shouted, waving their arms. Brill ignored them. He drove to the front of the line, stopping inches from the barrier chain. He jumped out. Out. Now. Amira scrambled out. Over the side. Brill yelled. Into the water. "Are you crazy? They're trapped on the ramp. We have seconds." The SUVs screeched onto the ferry deck. Men poured out. Brill grabbed Amira. He vaulted the railing. They hit the cold water of Puget Sound. The shock was brutal. It stole the breath from Brill's lungs. "Swim," he sputtered. "Under the pier." They swam into the darkness beneath the terminal. The wooden pilings were covered in barnacles and slime. Above them, boots hammered on the metal deck. Flashlights swept the water. "Where are they?" Nikolai's voice. Angry. "Close. In the water. I see ripples." Bullets hit the surface, cutting white streaks in the black water. "Deeper," Brill whispered. He pulled Amira behind a massive concrete piling. They huddled in the shadows, treading water. "He's going to find us," Amira chattered. Her teeth were clicking together. Hypothermia was setting in. "No," Brill said. "He thinks we're running. He'll search the perimeter." They waited. 5 minutes. 10. The shouting above faded. The engines of the SUVs revved. They were moving off, searching the shoreline. "We need to move," Brill said. "You're freezing." They swam to a maintenance ladder. Climbed up. They were on a service walkway under the main deck. Brill led her along the catwalk. They emerged near a parking lot for ferry employees. "Another car," Brill said. "And then we disappear." He found a heater-equipped van. Stole it. He cranked the heat. Amira huddled in front of the vents, shivering violently. "Where now?" she asked. "The mountains," Brill said. "I have a place. Off the grid. No cameras. No cell service. Just us and the trees. They'll find us." "Let them come," Brill said. He looked at his hands on the steering wheel. They were steady. In the woods, the advantage shifts. He drove east toward the Cascades. Toward the snow line. Nikolai had chased them through the city. He had used technology and numbers. But in the mountains, technology failed. Numbers didn't matter. In the mountains, it was just hunter and prey. Chapter 15. The safe house wasn't on any map. It was a jagged splinter of wood and tin, buried deep in the Cascades, accessible only by a logging road that hadn't seen a truck since the 80s. Brill drove the stolen van up the final incline, tires slipping on the wet pine needles. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating trunks as thick as bridge pilings. He killed the engine. Silence rushed back in, heavy and cold. "Where are we?" Amira asked. She was still shivering, wrapped in a blanket she'd found in the van. "Nowhere," Brill said. "That's the point." He got out. The air smelled of snow and sap. He walked to the cabin. It was small, sturdy, with a porch that sagged slightly on the left. He unlocked the door with a key, hidden under a loose stone in the foundation. Inside, it was cold as a tomb. "Get inside," Brill said. "I need to secure the perimeter." Amira climbed out of the van, clutching the metal box. She hurried into the cabin. Brill didn't follow her immediately. He walked the property line. He checked the sight lines. The cabin sat on a ridge, backed by a cliff face. The only approach was the road. It was defensible, but it was also a trap. If Nikolai found them, there was no back door. He went back to the van. He took the first aid kit, the flare gun he'd found under the seat, and a tire iron. Not much of an arsenal against Spetsnaz. He went inside. Amira had found the wood stove. She was trying to light a fire with old newspapers. "Let me," Brill said. He built the fire quickly. The flames caught, casting flickering shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The warmth began to bleed into the room. "Is there a phone?" Amira asked. "No landline. No cell service. We're dark. So we just wait. We wait for morning. Then we hike out over the ridge. There's a trailhead 5 miles north. We can get a ride into Leavenworth. Why not just drive? Because Nikolai will be watching the roads. He'll have traffic cams, drones, satellites. The van is burned. We need to be on foot." Brill pulled the satellite phone from his bag. The one Simon had given him. It was their only lifeline. He stepped out onto the porch. He extended the antenna. No signal. He frowned. He moved to the edge of the clearing. Still nothing. "Jamming?" Brill whispered. It wasn't just the mountains blocking the signal. It was electronic interference. Broad spectrum. Military grade. He looked up at the sky. Clouds obscured the stars. But somewhere up there, a drone was circling. Or a relay station was active. They weren't just hiding. They were being corralled. He went back inside. He locked the door. He wedged a chair under the handle. "What is it?" Amira asked, seeing his face. "Communication is down," Brill said. "We can't call out." "Are they here?" "Not yet. But they're close." He started to fortify the cabin. He covered the windows with old blankets. He moved the heavy oak table in front of the door. He checked his ammo. 2 magazines for the SIG. That was it. "Do you know how to shoot?" Brill asked. "I'm a biologist," Amira said. "I look through microscopes. Tonight you might have to look through sights." He handed her the flare gun. "If someone comes through that door who isn't me, you shoot them in the face. It won't kill them, but it will make them wish they were dead." Amira took the flare gun. Her hands were shaking, but she held it tight. "Why are they doing this?" she asked. "Why go to all this trouble for samples from 10 years ago?" "Because Zoric isn't just a general anymore," Brill said. "He's a politician. He's rewriting history. And you're the typo he can't erase." A sound outside. Snap. A twig breaking. Brill froze. He signaled Amira to get down. He moved to the window. He peered through a gap in the blanket. Darkness. Trees. Wind. Then a flash of movement. A shadow detaching itself from a tree trunk. Then another. "They're here," Brill whispered. He counted 3 heat signatures moving through the trees. They were using night vision. They were moving tactically. Nikolai hadn't come alone. He had brought the rest of the team. The siege had begun. Brill moved to the back wall. There was a small window high up. He climbed onto a crate and looked out. 2 more men coming down the cliff face. Repelling. 5 hostiles. Armed with automatic weapons and night vision. Against 1 man with a pistol and a tire iron. "Get in the corner," Brill told Amira. "Stay behind the stove. It's cast iron. It will stop bullets." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to even the odds." Brill picked up the tire iron. He moved to the door. He didn't wait for them to breach. He didn't wait for them to throw a flashbang. He opened the door and stepped out into the night. Chapter 16. Night in the Cascades wasn't just an absence of light. It was a physical weight that pressed down on the trees and the small cabin huddled on the ridge. Brill stood on the porch, the air biting his face with the promise of snow. He didn't see the 5 men he knew were out there, but he felt them. He felt the shift in the wind, the subtle displacement of shadows that meant something was moving that shouldn't be. Nikolai wasn't rushing. He was setting up a perimeter. He was closing the net. Brill stepped back inside and locked the door. He dragged the heavy oak table closer, creating a barricade. "Get behind the stove," Brill said to Amira. She was already there, huddled in the corner, clutching the metal box like it contained oxygen. "Are they coming?" she whispered. "They're positioning," Brill said. "They want to hit us from multiple angles. Overwhelm us." He moved to the front window. He peeked through a gap in the blanket. Nothing. Just the dark wall of pines. Then a flicker. A red laser dot swept across the porch railing. "Snipers," Brill murmured. "They have optics." He moved away from the window. He went to the kitchen area. He opened the cabinets. He found a bottle of cooking oil, a box of matches, and a roll of aluminum foil. "What are you doing?" Amira asked. "Making surprises." He poured the oil onto the floor near the back door. He tore strips of foil and scattered them near the windows. "The foil will reflect their laser sights," Brill explained. "Confuse their night vision. The oil, well, that's just friction." He checked the SIG. 1 full magazine in the gun. 1 spare in his pocket. 30 rounds. 5 men. Automatic weapons. Body armor. The math was bad. A sound came from the roof. A soft thud. Like a heavy branch falling. Or a boot. "Roof," Brill whispered. He looked up at the ceiling. The cabin had a small attic space, accessible by a trapdoor in the hallway. He moved silently to the hallway. He stood under the trapdoor. He waited. The handle turned. Slowly. Brill raised the SIG. The trapdoor opened an inch. A fiber optic camera snaked through the gap. Brill didn't shoot the camera. He grabbed it. Yanked it down hard. A curse from above. Russian. Then the trapdoor flew open. A flashbang dropped through. "Cover!" Brill yelled. He dove into the bedroom as the grenade exploded. Bang! The sound was deafening in the confined space. White light seared Brill's vision, even with his eyes closed. His ears rang like church bells. He rolled onto his back, aiming at the hallway. A man dropped through the hole. He wore black tactical gear, night vision goggles flipped down. He held a suppressed MP5. He landed in a crouch, scanning. Brill fired. 3 rounds. Chest. Chest. Head. The man jerked back, his armor stopping the chest shots, but the headshot put him down. He slumped against the wall, the MP5 clattering to the floor. 1, Brill counted. Glass shattered in the living room. The front window. Another flashbang came through the blanket. Brill scrambled backward, deeper into the bedroom. The second bang rocked the cabin. "Amira!" Brill shouted. "Stay down." He heard boots on the front porch. The door exploded inward, the lock shattering under a breech round. 2 men came through the door. Lasers sweeping the smoke-filled room. They moved toward the kitchen. Toward Amira. Brill didn't have a clear shot. The wall was in the way. He looked at the floor. The old pine boards. He fired through the wall. He knew the layout. He estimated the distance. He dumped 5 rounds into the living room wall at chest height. A scream. A heavy thud. "Man down," a voice yelled. English this time. "Contractors. Suppress him." Automatic fire tore through the bedroom wall. Splinters flew like shrapnel. Brill pressed himself flat against the floor. He needed to move. If he stayed here, they would flank him. He looked at the window in the bedroom. It faced the cliff. He crawled to it. He opened it. Cold air rushed in. He slid out. He hung by his fingertips from the sill, his feet finding purchase on the rough logs. He was outside, on the side of the cabin. He could hear the men inside shouting, moving furniture. He climbed up to the roof. The shingles were slick with ice. He moved carefully, low and flat. He reached the peak. He looked down the other side. A man was standing near the front porch, guarding the entrance. He was looking inside, not up. Brill drew his knife. He didn't want to waste ammo. And he didn't want to make noise. He slid down the roof. He timed it. He jumped. He landed on the man's shoulders. The impact drove them both to the ground. The man tried to yell, but Brill drove the knife into the base of his neck. The man went limp. "Two," Brill whispered. He took the man's radio. He took his rifle, an AR-15. He checked the magazine. Full. He listened to the radio chatter. "Target is in the bedroom. Clear it." "Negative. Bedroom is empty. He's gone. Check the perimeter." Brill moved to the window he had just jumped from. He looked inside. One man was in the living room, checking the body of the one Brill had shot through the wall. The other man, the one from the roof, wasn't there. Where was he? Brill scanned the room. The attic. The man hadn't dropped down. He had stayed up there, covering the hallway. Brill raised the AR-15. He aimed through the window at the ceiling of the hallway. He fired a burst. Dust and plaster rained down inside. A body fell through the trapdoor, landing on top of the first dead man. "Three," Brill said. Inside, the last man in the living room spun around, firing wildly at the window. Bullets punched through the glass, missing Brill by inches. Brill ducked. He moved along the wall to the front door. He stepped into the doorway. The man was reloading. He saw Brill. He tried to bring his weapon up. Brill fired. 2 shots. The man dropped. 4, Brill said. Silence fell over the cabin. The smoke drifted in the draft from the open door. Brill walked into the living room. He checked the bodies. All dead. He moved to the stove. Amira. She crawled out from behind the cast iron. She was covered in soot, shaking violently, but unharmed. Are they dead? 4 of them, Brill said. There were 5. Yes. Brill looked at the open door. At the dark woods beyond. Nikolai wasn't among the dead. He hadn't breached. He hadn't repelled. He had sent his team in to flush the target. To take the hits. He was still out there. Watching. Waiting for Brill to show himself. A red laser dot appeared on Amira's chest. Brill tackled her. Crack. A bullet punched through the wall, exactly where she had been standing. High velocity. Sniper rifle. He's in the trees, Brill said, dragging Amira back behind the stove. He has an angle. We're trapped, she said. No, Brill said. We're bait. He looked at the bodies on the floor. He looked at the AR-15 in his hand. Stay here, Brill said. Keep your head down. If he fires again, he gives away his position. Where are you going? I'm going hunting. Brill stripped off his jacket. He put it on one of the dead contractors. He put his cap on the man's head. He dragged the body to the door. "Get ready," Brill whispered. He shoved the body out onto the porch. Crack. The body jerked as a bullet hit it. Brill saw the muzzle flash. 200 yards out, up the ridge. He knew where Nikolai was. He didn't go out the front. He went out the back window, the one facing the cliff. He climbed down the rocks. He circled wide, moving through the deep snow, flanking the shooter's position. Chapter 17. The snow was falling harder now, thick wet flakes that hissed when they hit the hot barrel of the AR-15. Brill lay in the depression between two boulders, covered in a white sheet he'd pulled from the cabin's linen closet before he left. It was crude camouflage, but in the dark and the snow, it was enough. He watched the tree line above the cabin. 200 yards up the slope. Nikolai was good. He hadn't fired again. He hadn't moved. He was waiting for a target. But he was waiting for a target on the porch, not one on his flank. Brill checked the wind. It was swirling, unpredictable. A long shot with an AR-15 was risky. He needed to get closer. He crawled. He moved inch by inch, dragging himself through the snow. The cold seeped through his clothes, numbing his fingers, but he ignored it. Cold was just sensation. Sensation could be managed. He reached a cluster of pines 50 yards from Nikolai's position. He stopped. Listened. Nothing but the wind. Then a voice. "You're making this difficult, Wingfield." The voice came from the trees ahead. It wasn't shouting. It was conversational. Amplified. No. Just projecting in the quiet woods. "I'm not the one freezing on a ridge," Brill called back. "I'm Russian," Nikolai said. "We don't freeze. We endure. Your friends didn't endure. They were contractors. Expensive meat. Their job was to flush you out. They failed. So now it's just us. It was always just us. The others, they were noise." Brill shifted his position. He scanned the trees. He couldn't see Nikolai, but he could triangulate the voice. "Why are you doing this?" Brill asked. "Zoric is a general. You're Spetsnaz. You don't take orders from politicians. Zoric isn't a politician. He's a visionary. He's a butcher. I read the journals, Nikolai. I know what he did in Homs. The children. The binary agent." Silence from the trees. "War is ugly," Nikolai said finally. "You know this. You've seen it." "I've seen war. That wasn't war. That was science. Cruel science. It was necessary. We needed to know. The West talks about red lines, about morality. But you use drones. You use sanctions that starve millions. We use chemistry. It is faster. Cleaner." "Cleaner?" Brill laughed. A harsh sound. "Foaming at the mouth. Paralysis? Dying in your own fluids. That's not clean. It is effective. And effectiveness is the only metric that matters." Brill moved again. 10 yards closer. "Amira Kasser," Brill said. She was there. She saw it. She saw data. She didn't see the result. The stability. The dispersal radius. Zoric perfected it. And now, he wants to erase the evidence. He wants to protect the future. If the ICC indicts him, Russia looks weak. We cannot look weak. Not now. So you kill 3 professors and a biologist to save face. I kill 4 traitors to save the state. It is a fair trade. Brill was close now. 30 yards. He could see a shape in the V of a tree, a dark mass that didn't belong. He raised the rifle. "The state doesn't care about you, Nikolai," Brill said. "You're just another contractor. Expendable. We are all expendable, Wingfield. Even you." Nikolai fired. Crack. The bullet hit the tree Brill was using for cover. Bark exploded into his face. Brill didn't flinch. He leaned out. He fired. A burst of 3 rounds. He saw the shape in the tree jerk. Fall. Brill didn't wait. He charged. He sprinted through the snow, closing the distance. Nikolai was on the ground. He was trying to stand. He had been hit in the leg. He raised his rifle. A VSS Vintorez. Brill fired again. The rifle flew from Nikolai's hands. Nikolai fell back. He reached for his belt. A pistol. Brill kicked him in the chest. Nikolai gasped. He lay there, looking up at the sky. Blood stained the snow around his leg. "It's over," Brill said. Nikolai laughed. A wet, gurgling sound. "It is never over," he whispered. "There is always another mission. Not for you. Zoric, he will not stop. Even if I die. He has resources. Reach." "I know," Brill said. "That's why I'm going to kill him too." Nikolai looked at Brill. His eyes were fading. But there was respect in them. "You are good," Nikolai said. "For an American." "I'm not American," Brill said. "I'm independent." Nikolai smiled. His hand relaxed. The pistol fell from his fingers. He stopped breathing. Brill stood over him. The wind howled through the trees. He checked the body. Confirmed the kill. He took Nikolai's phone. His wallet. The VSS rifle. Then he turned back toward the cabin. He had won the duel. But the war wasn't over. He walked down the slope. Amira was waiting. And Zoric was still in Geneva. Brill checked the magazine in the AR-15. Chapter 18. The woods were a silent, frozen cathedral. Brill stood in the lee of a massive pine, watching the space where Nikolai had died. The body was still there, a dark shape in the snow, but the snow was already covering it, erasing the mistake. "It's done," Brill whispered to himself. But it wasn't. Nikolai had been the captain of the team. But he hadn't been the whole team. Brill did the math. 5 men at the cabin. 1 sniper in the trees. That was 6. He had killed 4 in the cabin. 1 on the roof. And Nikolai. 6 down. But Simon had said Zoric had resources. Reach. Brill checked the VSS Vintorez he had taken from Nikolai. The thermal scope was military grade. He scanned the woods. Nothing. Just the cold blue ghosts of trees. "Amira," Brill said into the radio he had taken from the dead contractor. "Status." "I'm cold," her voice crackled back. She was still in the cabin, huddled behind the stove. "And I think I hear something." "What?" "Voices. Outside. Near the road." Brill turned. The road was on the other side of the ridge. The only way in or out. If there were voices, there were reinforcements. "Stay down," Brill said. "Do not move." He moved through the trees, circling back toward the cabin. He moved fast, ignoring the burn in his lungs and the numbness in his fingers. He reached the ridge line above the road. He looked down. 2 SUVs. Black. Idling. And a truck. A heavy-duty transport. Men were getting out. Brill counted 4. Then 6. They weren't wearing the mishmash gear of contractors. They were wearing uniforms. Winter camouflage, Helmets. Spetsnaz, Brill whispered. Or close enough. A second wave. A extraction team for the evidence, and a liquidation team for the witnesses. They were deploying. Fan formation. Moving up the slope toward the cabin. They didn't know Nikolai was dead. They were coming to support him. Brill looked at the VSS. 10 rounds in the mag. He had the AR-15 with 20 rounds, and the SIG with 15. 45 rounds. 10 men. He could pick them off. Delay them. But they would overwhelm the cabin. They would find Amira. He needed to change the dynamic. He needed to turn the hunters into the hunted. He looked at the terrain. The road cut through a narrow pass below the ridge. Snow was piled high on the slopes above it. Unstable. Heavy. Brill smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. He moved along the ridge. He found a spot directly above the lead vehicle. He aimed the VSS at the snowpack. Not at the men. At the mountain itself. He fired. Thwip. The bullet buried itself in the snow. Nothing happened. He fired again. And again. Stitching a line across the face of the drift. A crack appeared. Small at first. Then widening. A groan echoed through the valley. The sound of the earth shifting. The men below stopped. They looked up. Avalanche, one screamed. The snow let go. It wasn't a massive slide. Just a few tons of wet, heavy snow. But it was enough. It crashed down onto the road. It hit the lead SUV, flipping it onto its side. It buried the transport truck halfway up the wheels. The men scrambled, diving for cover. Brill didn't wait. He switched targets. He aimed at the men who were still standing. Thwip. Thwip. 2 went down. The others opened fire. Wildly. Spraying the ridge with AK rounds. Brill moved. He ran along the ridge line, changing position. He dropped the VSS and switched to the AR-15. He popped up 50 yards away. He fired a burst. Another man fell. Contact high, a voice yelled. 12 o'clock. They were disorganized. Panicked. They had expected a cleanup, not a war. Brill kept moving. He was a ghost in the trees. Fire. Move. Fire. Move. He killed 2 more. That left 5. But they were regrouping. Taking cover behind the wrecked vehicles. Setting up a base of fire. They were professionals. They would adapt. Brill looked at the cabin. Amira was alone. Defenseless. He had to end this. He dropped down the slope. Sliding. Skidding. He hit the tree line just above the road. He was close now. 30 yards. He pulled the last flashbang from his pocket. The one he had saved. He pulled the pin. He threw it. It landed in the middle of the group, huddled behind the truck. Bang. Screams. Confusion. Brill charged. He came out of the trees, firing. The AR-15 bucked in his hands. He took the man on the left. Then the one on the right. 3 left. One of them saw him. Raised a rifle. Brill didn't stop. He fired from the hip. The man dropped. 2. The last 2 turned to run. To the remaining SUV. Brill stopped. He raised the rifle to his shoulder. He took a breath. He fired. 1 shot. The driver fell. The last man stopped. He threw down his weapon. He raised his hands. "I surrender," he shouted in English. Brill walked toward him. The snow crunched under his boots. He stopped 10 feet away. He kept the rifle leveled. "Who sent you?" Brill asked. "Zoric," the man gasped. "General Zoric." "Where is he?" "Geneva. He is waiting for the call. For confirmation." "Confirmation of what?" "That the box is secured. That the woman is dead." Brill looked at the man. He was young, terrified, just a soldier following orders. But orders had consequences. "Get in the SUV," Brill said. "What?" "Get in. Drive away. Tell Zoric you failed. Tell him Nikolai is dead. Tell him the evidence is gone." The man stared at him. He couldn't believe it. "Go," Brill said. The man scrambled into the SUV. He reversed, tires spinning. He turned around and sped down the road away from the carnage. Brill watched him go. He wasn't being merciful. He was sending a message. He wanted Zoric to know. He wanted him to feel the fear. Brill walked back up the slope. His legs burned. His shoulder ached where the recoil had battered him. He reached the cabin. He opened the door. Amira was standing there, the flare gun in her hand. She looked at him. At the blood on his jacket. At the rifle. "Is it over?" she asked. "The shooting is over," Brill said. He walked to the stove. He warmed his hands. "Get your things," he said. "We have a delivery to make." "Where?" "Seattle. The federal building. It's time to finish this." "What about Zoric?" "Zoric is next," Brill said. "But first, we lock him in a cage." He looked out the window, at the snow falling on the dead men. The woods were quiet again. The silence of the grave. Brill picked up the metal box. "Let's go," he said. They walked out into the cold, leaving the war behind them. Chapter 19. The drive to Seattle was a silent descent from the adrenaline of the mountains, back into the mundane reality of traffic lights and speed limits. Brill drove the SUV he had taken from the surviving Spetsnaz soldier. It was a sturdy vehicle, black, with tinted windows that hid the blood on his jacket and the exhaustion on Amira's face. They reached the city just as the morning commute was starting. The skyline was gray, shrouded in mist, the Space Needle a ghostly spire in the distance. "Where are we going?" Amira asked. She was holding the metal box on her lap, her knuckles white. "The federal building on 2nd Avenue," Brill said. "It houses the FBI, the marshals, and a secure DOJ annex." "You said no FBI." "I said no local FBI. No field agents who might be compromised or confused. We're not going to the front desk. We're going to a specific room on the 14th floor." Brill pulled out the satellite phone. He dialed Carver. "It's done," Brill said. "Is the package secure?" Carver asked. His voice was tight, anxious. "Secure. But heavy. I left a mess in the mountains, Carver. 10 bodies. Vehicles. It's going to be hard to clean up. We have a team en route. Forest Service cover story. Drug cartel shootout. It'll hold for the news cycle." "And Zoric?" "Zoric is still in Geneva. But he knows. We intercepted a burst transmission from his team 5 minutes ago. Mission failed. Assets liquidated. He's running scared. He should be. I'm bringing Amira in. And the box." "Good. Listen to me, Brill. Don't go to the FBI field office. Go to the loading dock on Madison Street. There will be a van. White. Government plates. 2 men. Marshals. They're vetted. They answer directly to the Hague liaison." "How do I know they're clean?" Because one of them is my son. Brill paused. He hadn't known Carver had a son. He's a deputy marshal, Carver said. Name is David. He knows who you are. He knows what's at stake. Hand her over to him. He'll get her on a military transport to The Hague within the hour. And the evidence? Give it to him. It goes with her. Chain of custody starts the moment you hand it off. Understood. Brill hung up. He looked at Amira. Change of plans, he said. Loading dock. Madison Street. Is it safe? It's as safe as it gets. The marshals are taking you. Straight to the airport. Straight to the Netherlands. Amira looked out the window at the rain-streaked city. I never wanted this, she whispered. I just wanted to teach biology. You did the right thing, Brill said. 10 years ago. And today. Did I? Elias is dead. Ivan is dead. Aris is dead. Was it worth it? Brill thought about the children in the journal. The foam at the mouth. The pinned pupils. Yes, Brill said. It was. He turned onto Madison Street. He found the loading dock. A white van was waiting, engine idling. 2 men stood by the rear doors. They wore windbreakers with U.S. Marshal stenciled on the back. Brill pulled the SUV up next to the van. He kept the engine running. He kept the AR-15 in his lap, covered by his jacket. He rolled down the window. The taller of the 2 marshals walked over. He looked young, determined. He looked like Carver around the eyes. Wingfield? The marshal asked. David. That's me. Is she okay? She's tired. She's scared. But she's whole. Brill turned to Amira. Go with him. He'll keep you safe. Amira hesitated. She looked at Brill. What about you? I have one more stop. Thank you, she said. She opened the door. She climbed out, clutching the box. David took the box from her, gently. He handed it to his partner, who placed it in a secure lockbox in the van. Then he helped Amira into the back seat. David walked back to Brill's window. My father said to tell you the account is settled, David said. And he said to disappear. The cleanup in the mountains is going to draw heat. State police are already asking questions. I'm gone, Brill said. David nodded. He walked back to the van. They drove away, merging into traffic. Brill watched them go. He sat there for a moment, the rain drumming on the roof. The evidence was safe. The witness was safe. The ICC would get their indictment. Zoric would get his warrant. But warrants were paper. And Zoric was a man who ignored paper. Brill put the SUV in gear. He wasn't going to the airport. Not yet. He had Nikolai's phone. He had the number Zoric had called. He dialed it. It rang 3 times. Report, a voice said. Zoric. Nikolai is dead, Brill said. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Who is this? Zoric asked. His voice was calm, but there was a tremor in it. A crack in the armor. I'm the man who just put your future in a box and shipped it to The Hague. Wingfield. You remember me. I know your reputation. You are a nuisance. I'm a consequence, Brill said. Amira Kasser is gone. The samples are gone. The journals are gone. You failed, General. I never fail. I adapt. Adapt to a prison cell. Because they're coming for you. They can try. I have immunity. I have position. You have nothing, Brill said. You're a war criminal with a target on your back. And the world just found out where to aim. You think this is over? Zoric hissed. You think you can just walk away? I'm not walking away, Brill said. I'm watching. And if you try to run, if you try to hurt anyone else, I won't send a lawyer. I'll come myself. He hung up. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat. He drove the SUV to a long-term parking lot near the stadium. He wiped it down. He left the keys on the tire. He walked to the train station. He bought a ticket to Portland. Cash. From Portland, he'd fly to D.C. The job was done. The circle was closed. But as the train pulled out of the station, watching the gray city slide past, Brill knew the truth. Justice was a process. But survival was a fight. Chapter 20. 3 months later, Washington, D.C. was buried under a foot of snow that turned the streets into slush and made the traffic even worse than usual. Brill sat in the back of a bar called the Tune Inn on Capitol Hill. It was a dive in a city that didn't have many real dives left. Taxidermy on the walls. Cheap beer. Politicians and staffers pretending to be normal people for an hour. The TV above the bar was tuned to BBC World News. The volume was low, but the captions were clear. Russian general arrested in Switzerland. War crimes indictment unsealed. ICC prosecutors praise heroic witnesses. The screen showed footage of Viktor Zoric being led out of a hotel in Geneva. He wasn't wearing his uniform. He was wearing a suit, his hands cuffed behind his back. He looked angry, defiant, but he also looked old. The anchor was talking about the evidence, chemical analysis, testimony, a mountain of proof that had appeared almost overnight. Brill took a sip of his beer. The narrative had held. The Pembroke shooting was still officially a lone wolf attack. The deaths of Petrov and Curry were still tragic accidents and robberies. The public didn't know about the squad. They didn't know about the binary agent. They didn't know about the battle in the Cascades. They just knew that justice had been done. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Brill answered. Yes. It's Carver. I saw the news. It's a good day, Carver said. Zoric is in custody. The trial is set for next year. He's not getting out, Brill. He's going to die in a cell. And Amira. She's safe. Living in the Netherlands under a new identity. She's teaching again. Biology. Good. There's something else, Carver said. The cleanup in Washington state. It got messy. The Forest Service found the bodies. But we managed it. It's officially a drug deal gone bad. Cartel violence. I figured. But the Russians know. They know you did it. They know you took Zoric down. Let them know, Brill said. Maybe next time they'll think twice before sending a hit squad to my country. They will, Carver said. But they have long memories. You should watch your back. I always do. Are you still in D.C.? For now. I have something, Carver said. A new job. Different from this one. Cleaner. I'm retired, Carver. No, you're not. You're just resting. What's the job? There's a situation in Berlin. A defector, but not Russian. Chinese. He claims to have information about a network of industrial spies in Silicon Valley. He needs extraction. Why me? Because he asked for you. By name. Or by reputation. He said he wants the ghost. Brill looked at his reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Tired eyes. A scar on his chin that was still pink. He thought about the cabin in the woods, the snow, the silence. He thought about Zoric in handcuffs. When does it start? Brill asked. Tonight. There's a ticket waiting at Dulles. Lufthansa. First class this time. Send the file. Already sent. Brill hung up. He finished his beer. He put cash on the table. He stood up and put on his coat. He walked out into the snow. The cold air hit him sharp and clean. The circle was closed. Mercer, Petrov, Curry. They could rest now. The man who ordered their deaths was finished. The truth was out. But there were always more circles, more secrets, more men like Zoric who thought they could rewrite history with blood. Brill checked his phone. The file was downloading. Berlin. He turned his collar up against the wind. He walked toward the metro. He disappeared into the crowd of commuters, just another face in the gray city. The phone in his pocket felt heavy. A weight he carried so others didn't have to. The end.